egotistical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL Network.
Yes, that is right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday Night Network's Best of 2022 special. I want to wish all of our listeners a very happy new year as we begin 2023, and I am so looking forward to Saturday Night Live in the new year. There's so many exciting things about season 48 of SNL. I can't wait to dive into all of it with our amazing panelists and all of our listeners who contribute to all of our shows. So excited to be here with you for the second year in a row doing a best of special. If you missed last year's, go check out our best of 2021. There were some really fun moments in that one. But for this year, to begin the new year, we thought we would have one look back at the previous year of SNL and SNL coverage. And if you're just jumping in, or maybe you check out one of our shows, this is a really good way to catch up on some of the content you may have missed from what we produce. And yes, we put out a lot of content. I appreciate all of our listeners who listen to as much as they can and have really helped us grow and get to this point. So thank you again for all of that, and hoping that you're having a very happy holidays. But yeah, very excited to go through all of these clips. This will be a very fun show. I will take you through the journey of the previous year as we go through all of the big moments from the year, talk about our favorite SNL moments and favorite moments on the podcast specifically. That will be very fun to do. We'll get to hear from a lot of the contributors on the podcast who really make, this thing happen. They're the special ingredients in what we produce. So happy with our team that we have here working with us. I want to give a lot of thanks to not only the podcasters who put in, tireless hours working on the podcast, but everybody behind the scenes as well, in the marketing team or anything that we, anyone who's worked here to grow. Just appreciate all of you. But yeah, so if you're joining us live for this journey, very excited to show you all of these clips. And if you're listening after the fact, hopefully this will be a fun show to get you through to our next live show, which will be next Monday night, January 9th, I believe. January 9th is next Monday. Yeah, January 9th, next Monday. We will be live for, it's a new year, trying to get used to the days. We'll be live for our mid-season By the Number show, where we will recap from a numbers perspective the first half of the season and talk about the important numbers to watch for the second half of the season. So that will be on the 9th. And then the following week, we will have our Cecily Strong career retrospective, where we will go through her entire career the same way we did with Kate and Pete and Kyle and 80 this past summer. And then I guess we did it also with Alex and Chris and Aristotle. They just kept piling up, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So that will be coming up then. And then, of course, Saturday Night Live will return the following week, which we'll be very excited about. Host and musical guest to be announced. Okay, let's kick off this best of 2022 by going all the way back to the beginning of 2022, specifically January 17th. 2022. That's where I want to start things off, because we had a really special show that night. So I'll explain to you, if you're not so familiar with all of our shows, I'll explain to you what each of them are as we go through the show. But we're going to start with a roundtable here, which was the Ariana, DeBose, and Bleachers roundtable. I believe it was supposed to be Roddy Ricch, if I remember correctly, but then Bleachers replaced Roddy there. So this was a really fun show. It was the first of the year. We had just been coming off this crazy show with Paul Rudd where everything got canceled due to Omicron. And it was like, I was not sure what we were going to get, who was going to be in the building. It was one of the most fascinating experiences, December of 2021. And then January 2022, okay, Ariana DeBose is coming in. I wasn't super familiar with Ariana. I thought she did a really good job that night, especially with Kate. I think they had like a really fun monologue together. I think she really worked well with everybody. But on our roundtable, which is our shows that we do on Monday nights, where we really dive deep into the sketches, we were, we had some really fun talk about the episode. But what made this particular roundtable special was this was actually the 100th episode of the SNL network. And it was just like, I couldn't believe it. As I said on the show, when I started it, it was just, I want to talk to some people about the show. Started to grow from there. We had some really fun guests. The listeners started coming on in. I started getting to know all of you. And then we built this community that I'm so proud of. And to celebrate the 100th episode, we had some former cast members come on the show. with us, and they came through the door of the podcast and gave their thoughts on the Ariana DeBose Roundtable. I encourage you to check out that show if you want to see their full thoughts, including Gary Kroger, a cast member in the 1980s during the Ebersol years. He's a big contributor to the podcast over the years and a good friend of the show. And then Siobhan Fallon Hogan, who we interviewed in 2021, also joined the show. But then we spoke third to Jeff Richards, who was a cast member for like 2.5 years on the show. Super funny guy. He does this podcast where he does deep fakes, and he's a really nice guy, but he's a very interesting character. And we brought him in to talk about the Ariana DeBose episode, and I wanted to get to know his thoughts. So here is, a little brief glimpse into our 100th episode celebration, and Jeff Richards coming on the podcast to talk about the Ariana DeBose episode, which was a very weird experience. Thanks, Jeff, for all this. Enjoy the clip.
100 times.
Thank you, Michael Bolton, for introducing us for our 100th episode here at the SNL Network. Yes, that is right. We have hit 100 podcasts, ladies and gentlemen. When I started this in late September of 2020, I was like, let's do this. Let's talk about SNL and see how it goes. And I did not think we would get to 100 episodes. And I'm so thrilled and thankful for all of our listeners, all of our podcasters, all of our patrons for getting us to 100 podcasts. So thank you all. Tonight we have a very, very special show with some special guests potentially popping in along the way. So if you're watching us live, I'm sure you will enjoy the surprises we have for you in this show. But we're not gonna, avoid talking about Ariana DeBose and Bleachers on Saturday Night Live, which was our most recent episode. So we are gonna get into that. And for this episode, we brought in two of our original podcasters, the people who joined us from the beginning. We're right here all the way from 1 to 100. Joining us first is the great Bill Kenny. Bill, how are you?
I'm doing well, John. Congrats on 100. It's a pretty big milestone, and looking forward to the next 100.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm just thrilled to do this with every single one of our podcasters who join us all the time. So thanks, Bill. And joining us as well is, one of the 100 Andrews that joins us on the SNL Network. Haskell, how are you?
One for every episode. I'm doing good. Honored to be here for number 100. I was going to ask if you had a musical number prepared, but looks like with the help of Lonely Island, you had something. So again, congrats on 100. Thanks for having me.
And it is... Oh. One more time. Wait. Okay, yeah, there is somebody at the door. Bill Haskell. I know I wasn't sure if I should answer it the first couple times. You think we should one more time? We'll let somebody into the podcast?
Let's do it.
Third time's a charm.
All right. Joining us one more time. Another special guest. Look who it is. We have the great Jeff Richards, former SNL cast member from 2001 to 2004, joining us on the SNL Network 100th episode. Jeff, how are you?
John, it's a pleasure to be here. And from all the people in Ohio and all the people in Minnesota, we're just such big fans of this. And no, I'm just kidding. How you doing?
I'm good. You joined us all the way back. I think we were covering the John Mulaney episode in season 46. So you were you were one of our first guests we ever had on the show, and I was just so excited to get to talk to a former cast member. So really, just thank you for helping boost the show and getting all these new people interested to hear what we have to say about SNL.
Thank you, and thank you for not making me wear any clothes from the waist down.
Yeah, it was not required for this
drop.
No,
I know, and it's not required when you answer the door to get a pizza, but it's going that extra mile to make people feel like they need to leave. And,
of course.
I think that means this is the end of this interview, and I appreciate being here, but my hat is almost off my head. And as you can see...
Wait. If the hat falls off, that's when we got to stop. So
if the hat falls off, then this is the podcast is over with. You can't even do another episode.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. 100 and we're done. Okay. Well, Jeff, we just saw the Ariana DeBose and Bleachers episode of Saturday Night Live. I am, with a couple of panelists right now talking about that particular episode. And I would love to know your thoughts on what you got to see from Ariana DeBose and the Bleachers episode on Saturday night.
Well, I loved it. I missed Aristotle. And and I love Aristotle. I love Jaj. He's so great to watch, and they're so lucky to have such a great impressionist. So subtle, like just his lip positions. And I'm not talking about a guy who wants to kiss another guy. I'm just saying his lip positions.
And you're not talking about Andrew Dismuke's lips either.
No, I'm not talking about anybody's. I'm really not talking about anybody's lips. Just lips in general. And he's good with his lips. Let's just say that.
Yes.
Does that? No, he's great. He's fantastic. I love the Longhorn sketch. You know,
cool. Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you: is there one particular sketch that stood out to you that you?
I
really
like
want
the
to talk
Longhorn one. It's just so silly. It's just so silly, and it's ridiculous. It's, you know, it's taking this hat's. We're almost done with this interview.
No.
Hold on, I'm fine. You know, it's just like, I love when they just take a little subtle thing and just hammer it over and over again. And I like that sketch.
Yeah, you liked it's the 10-to-1 sketch, the kitchen staff sketch, where they were talking about Peach and Lure. Yeah, so
what did you call me?
Exactly. But yeah, I definitely could see if you like the conceit of the kitchen staff sketch, I can understand why it appeals particularly to you. So you said you really like Jaj. You know, you're missing a little bit of Aristotle. Anybody else in the cast that you've seen so far in 47 just really standing out to you?
No, they're all terrible, and they all need to be replaced. No, I'm just kidding. No, I like this. You know, it goes by so fast, and when I'm watching an episode, I'm like, I feel like I'm there and going through it again. So it's like, you know, I'm just staring at the scenery, the sets and everything. So I missed a lot of it in that sense. But you know, everyone's got a lot of energy and funny and hitting their marks, and it's a great cast.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff, I mean, the listeners would love to hear, you know, everything that you've been up to. So catch the listeners on, you know, what you're doing.
Well, I got a new toilet, and it's better than this one. It's easier to clean. No, I've been doing my podcast where I do the podcast, John. You can set it up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, the Jeff Richards show it's one of my favorite podcasts out there. Jeff does a lot of deep fake interviews. You know, we got some great guests on,
such as Jimmy Fallon. It's the coolest thing in the world. You know what I mean? How you doing, man? Hey, how you doing, man? I found a paperclip yesterday. You know what I mean? It's a paperclip, you know? Yeah,
for sure. Jimmy, you do so great. You do an incredible Dr. Phil. There's so many great.
If you want to change your life, you got to make changes in your life.
Yeah, let alone Robert Downey Jr. There's so many great ones.
We just keep going on and on. It's just like metaphors and like, you know, just this weird, cathartic, strange, you know, this transcendental, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. And just an incredible guest you've had on, Bill Burr, John Lovitz, Daryl Hammond, just so many great people that you've had on, Sherry O'Terry, Gary Kroger, just a lot of former SNL cast members. It's really cool if you're a great SNL fan. Jeff, I do want to ask you, I mean, one of the great things about, you know, what we've been able to do here at the SNL Network is bring together fans of Saturday Night Live from around the world to connect and talk about the show. As a former cast member, you know, who's part of, you know, the community and getting to meet all these comedians that you've become friends with over the years. Anything special you want to just say to the SNL fans in the community who just love to get to hear from you and connect with the former cast members?
Hang tight. You'll be getting your blankets in the mail. They're embroidered to each of you, and you know who you are. If you love it, what I love about this day and age of SNL is that you can immerse yourself in it so much more with the internet and message boards and watching the videos before they repeat. And so I think it's a great, it's great what is offered, you know, in this day and age with being able to watch the show and you know, communicate with other people that love it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Cool. Okay, well, you know, Jeff, I so appreciate you dropping in on our 100th episode special. If you could just please tell the listeners where they can find your podcast so they can check out everything you've got going on.
Well, it's the podcast was mailed out to everyone a few weeks ago. So if you didn't get it in the mail, a little envelope this big with leprechauns all over it. If you didn't get that, you have to go to you can go to Linktree/Jeff Richards, or my Instagram is the Jeff Richards, and yeah, that's how that goes.
Perfect. Well, I look forward to catching up with you sometime soon.
Thanks, John. Thanks for letting me be so weird. I mean, I know it makes you uncomfortable, and I know the people watching are uncomfortable, but just thank you very much. And on that note, I just want to
Oh no. Oh, that's perfect. Okay. Jeff Richards always creating a very fun atmosphere on the podcast. So wonderful to hear from him. And Bill, he has his toilet's fixed. I think that's what he said. He got a new toilet.
Thank goodness. I'll be able to sleep tonight. That is great news to hear.
Yeah, so you never know what you're going to get when you have Jeff Richards on the show. Always appreciate getting to hear from him. And then, of course, Gary and Siobhan, who also contributed to that episode, which you can go back and check out from January 17th, 2022. Only 3 days later on the podcast, we had a very fun show called Hollywood Dish. And this was a show that I wanted to put together at the beginning of the year, hosted by Rebecca North and Nicole Rovine, two of our main contributors. And, you know, they're always on the podcast talking about like, you know, things that are happening in pop culture. And I find a lot of our listeners, a lot of you in the comments are like, whoa, I didn't even know that. So I thought it would be so cool to have them host a show every week where they sort of fill you in on pop culture tips and news stories and things that were happening. So you know, before you watch a Saturday Night Live episode, you were updated on what was happening in pop culture. And you know, I don't know if it worked exactly the way I wanted it to. Like, I still think there's an element of that. Like, Hollywood Dish is not a canceled show. We had it for the entirety of the second half of season 47, and perhaps we will bring it back at some point. But we're still looking for the right format. I don't know if it's an every week thing or an every couple months thing, or just when a news story breaks, we bring in, you know, our Hollywood Dish team of Nicole and Rebecca. But while we were experimenting with the format, we tried different guests on with Nicole and Rebecca. And this to me was probably the most memorable moment that I could think of, which was when we had Rich Tackenberg on the show with Nicole and Rebecca. And Rich, if you don't know him, I mean, he would say himself, he's not that tapped into all the pop culture stuff. Like, he knows about it, but like, he's like, you want me for Hollywood Dish? Like, I remember when they asked him, and it's like, okay, I mean, I'm a team player. Like, I'm a soldier. I'm going to jump on the show. And I thought this was a really funny moment, January 20th, 2022, when Nicole and Rebecca were still trying to figure out exactly the format of the show. It kept getting better and better, but this was so funny when they were talking to Rich about, you know, Bill Hader, who I think had just come out that he was dating Anna Kendrick. Or I had dated Anna Kendrick. I mean, Nicole, Rebecca, you have to tell me what's going on with them. But they started talking about what it means to stan a couple. And I just thought this was such a funny moment. And I wanted to include something from this special show. So here's Nicole, Rebecca, and Rich Tackenberg talking about Bill Hader and Anna Kendrick, January 20th, 2022.
News broke today that Anna Kendrick and former cast member Bill Hader have been quietly dating for about a year now. Quietly, secretly, casually, whatever you want to call it. Dating, and it is just kind of a random news story that broke today, and the source claimed that they're really happy, and it's been easy to keep it casual and quiet because of COVID, so it's not like they've been hiding per se, more so that it's like they can kind of enjoy privacy without really trying that hard in these times. So I want to hear what you have to say, both of you, what your thoughts are on this, and then I'll give mine.
I like it. I mean, Anna Kendrick is funny. Bill Hader's funny. They're both attractive. Like, I really don't see any problem in it. Like, the fact that they were able to keep it under wraps for a year, like, to me, and I don't know, this is just my opinion, I think that means that they're probably genuinely happy. They're not doing this for attention. They kept it under wraps. It's just the two of them for a year together, dating. And I mean, I like it. I would love to like sit in on their dinner conversations. And this is a couple I'm rooting for. And I hope works out. And I hope that all this news and gossip is true, because I really have no problems with this relationship.
Here's the thing. I'm an adult. I have a big job. I have family. I have responsibilities. There is no logical reason why I should care that two celebrities are dating. And yet, anytime I hear that two separate celebrities that I like separately are dating, I have this tween stan glee that comes. They've been shipped, or whatever the right term is you kids use. I'm so happy. It just makes me so happy to just think of them just hanging out, making each other laugh over the dumbest things, and maybe singing a cappella with plastic cups or something. Like, I'm so happy to hear this. It's such a fun thing. And I'm a huge Bill Hader fan. That's not a shock to anybody. I don't think anyone on an SNL podcast isn't a huge Bill Hader fan, but boy, I love the idea of those two together. That just seems like such a fun couple. So yeah, very happy about that.
We knew you belonged on this podcast. We knew
Exactly.
you were. Yes, we knew. I love the
That was
enthusiasm.
on Urban Dictionary right now, like literally on Urban Dictionary right now, being like, "What is the thing when young people like a celebrity couple together?" Oh, ship.
I was surprised I remembered the term. I thought I think I confused. They're percolating around. That's all I know. Yeah.
Yes. I'm so impressed. And then there are really great metaphors to use with ships of, like, you know, if you really love a couple, you build the ship, it's in the port, or you're going to have it go to sea. Like, it's this kind of never ending thing. It's the perfect, I think it originated on Tumblr, right? The phrase ship.
Yes. Rebecca? I think it's like,
that's the first time I heard it.
Me too. I think it was like a deep Tumblr, like, situation, but I've only ever used shipped in celebrities. I would never say it about like two of my friends that are dating. I would never be like, oh yeah, I ship them.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think it's like a parasocial thing. Like when it's like a celebrity couple, or I find like I use it more about fictional couples than celebrities themselves. Like I use it more like Chuck and Blair on Gossip Girl was my like OG ship. Or again, Succession, I have my ships.
I knew it was coming.
That's number 3.
Okay, well, thank you to Rich, Nicole, and Rebecca for that. And they really did produce some fun shows throughout the spring. They had Amanda on there. I remember that was another memorable show that they put together. Some other fun guests. Sammy K contributed a couple times. I think he even co-hosted one. So that was a fun Hollywood dish. I think those shows, even though it's not like this week in pop culture, you could definitely go back and listen to them if you missed them. I think there's some fun things just to hear about pop culture in 2022 if you wanted to go back and listen to that. Okay, so we talked about Ariana DeBose. So she comes in and hosts. And then I remember where I was when I found out that this next guy was going to host a Saturday Night Live in January. I got a text that said, "You're not going to believe who the name on the card is." And it's somebody I had been asking for a very long time. It was my man, Will Forte. And I try, like, look, I'm a journalist, people. I'm SNL media. I try not to be subjective. But the truth is, I am such a fan of Will Forte. There is just something every single time he's on screen, he makes me laugh. I don't know what it is. I think I do know what it is. I think we explored it that week. I think it was just that he is so weird, and nobody I have my weird moments, but I think people don't see me necessarily as weird. And I think he brings out this weird side of me. So Will, I was just so happy. I had met him before, and I was just so happy that he got the opportunity to host SNL. And let's be real, if you remember this episode, this was a weird episode of SNL. I believe historically it had a very unique note to it, which was the first episode since 1975, Paul Simon, the second episode in the series, to ever have every cast member not appear more than 2 times in an episode. So it was just like a weird format. I don't know that the episode was perfect, but I was so excited to see Will Forte on the show. And on January 22nd, 2022, when this episode aired, we went live for our Hot Take show immediately after the show airs. And if you don't know what our Hot Take show is, that is the show that we do every Saturday that there's a new SNL episode. I am live with a panel to break down all the sketches. We go through everything sketch by sketch and get immediate breakdown. And my favorite parts of those shows is the chat. It's getting to see all the comments and all the thoughts on all the sketches, because my mind is such a blur sometimes. Like I really, I know people, want to know my opinions on the sketches, and I do my best. Like I really think about what are the hot takes? What are the headlines for the night? What are the storylines that we're walking away from? But sometimes, it's just there's so much going on, reacting to everything, that it's really funny to sort of look back at the hot take shows and be like, what was my first reaction to everything? And getting the chat feedback, I think, really helps you formulate your thoughts on the episode. So that's why I love the hot take shows. But on January 22nd, we had our Will Forte hot take show. And I wanted to include this moment. It's a short moment, but it was really fun, where we're talking about a sketch that it was Kate McKinnon and Will Forte. It was sort of like an old-timey sketch, like going back like old movies. And it was Reese DeWatt, which was Kenan Thompson's character. They had a sketch together. And in this clip, you're going to see, I'm going to describe what I wish would have happened in this sketch instead of what actually happened. And Nicole full on calls me out and says some really funny stuff. So, you know, like, I just thought this was a cute moment to include. And here's a few minutes of our Will Forte hot take show. Okay, so great line with what are you making for dinner? A mess? Great line. I love that. That was really hilarious. But then I really felt like where the sketch went wrong a little bit was they should have gone down the path of Chloe Fineman and Will Forte kissing. And I felt like that was like there at the end of it. And it was like, do you agree, Nicole?
I just think that's what you personally want to see.
No. It's nothing. No, but I'm saying there was something there where it was like, oh, she's 18.
You're right.
And I thought the whole thing was going to be that he's gaslighting her because he really wants to hook up with the daughter.
You're totally right. You're right.
And I was
I'm
like,
just messing with
but
you.
it wasn't. Yeah, he just wanted to drive her mad. And that was like where I didn't get it. So I was saying, I feel like there was a trail there.
That's the theme of the night, is people who almost kissing who should have kissed Colin and Che.
Yes.
What happened?
Thank you for that.
The hot take. It's the headlines.
Yes.
That's
okay.
the headline. Where was the kiss?
Okay. So speaking of kissing, let's talk about 3 fun. For the record, I didn't want to see Will Forte and Chloe Fineman kiss for any other reason besides that sketch. But I just thought that was funny. And Nicole calling me out there. Nicole and I always have such great banter on the show. So happy to have her contributing to the podcast. I also recommend, by the way, you go check out the January 24th Roundtable, where we talked about the legacy of Will Forte and why we love him so much as a cast member. That was a really good show that we did that I didn't get a chance to include in this clip show. But I thought, go check it out as a recommendation. Next up on the SNL schedule in January was Willem Dafoe. I thought this was a pretty good episode of SNL. It still didn't reach the highs of some of the fall. Like, I really felt DeBose, Forte, and Dafoe were okay episodes of the show. A lot of penis talk in the Dafoe episode. I think if you go back and you listen to our hot take shows and roundtable, we're trying to figure out what the deal with that was. And we had some theories on why they did that. But, there was no particular clip I wanted to pull from that week, but I did think we had some good shows. And then there was a pretty long break between Dafoe and Mulaney, which was the next show. And I think this was because there was the 2022 Winter Olympics that were happening. And so we basically had no SNL for a while. And we had some fun shows on the break. But there was a show that I think a lot of the listeners may have missed in February, which was really good. And I'm really proud of it. It was a show that I called the Journalist Roundtable. And I had Dennis Perkins, formerly of the AV Club, and Auntie Hoagland of Entertainment Weekly, who write SNL recaps, come on and talk about their experience recapping the show. And I thought this was a great opportunity because, print media is so different than podcasts. Like, yes, Dennis has been on a roundtable and he's been on the show a ton of times. But when you read somebody's reviews, it is a little bit of a different feeling. And we have so many great listeners who write blogs that I encourage you to check out. It's just a different form of going back and getting people's thoughts on the shows. And I know, like, some people might say it's antiquated, but I think that there's value there. And that's what we discussed a lot in this Journalist Roundtable. And it was great to hear from Dennis and Andy, who recommended some tips for why, or like if you're interested in blogging about the show or writing about the show, how you go about doing that. And then Dennis spoke a little bit about his personal experience at the time, who he had mentioned that he was sort of saying goodbye to the AV Club and the reasons why. And a lot of our community had known that Dennis, who's been a longtime recapper of the show, was saying goodbye there. And he gives his thoughts on the industry and his experience leaving. And I thought this was a really nice moment to include. So this is from February 21st, 2022. Okay. I do want to ask, like I said, we have some, listeners who are bloggers themselves who, either have their own websites where they write recaps of SNL, or they've contributed and, submitted and tried to get in the places that the two of you are. Can I ask, for some advice that you can give to some, young up and coming, writers who are super talented, but, obviously Dennis, as you've mentioned, the pool of people out there who want to write about anything is massive. So how can you kind of, make your way through that?
I feel ridiculously spoiled in the way that I got to where I am. Like I said, the AV Club was my second paid writing gig, and it was beyond my imagining that I would ever write there, or especially that I would write there so soon after kind of going pro, so to speak. So in that case, I think people will just be mad at me because I kind of got lucky. But the only advice I have is just write. And that sounds stupid and facile. But, I started it was a blog. You can still find it. It's called Video Port Jones. It was for this video store, and it was overeducated and underemployed movie freaks who were just basically trying to keep our brains engaged and not turning to jelly. And so we would just write movie reviews, and we put them up online, and nobody would read them, or half, maybe a dozen people would read them, but you just kept doing it. I did that for 10 years for free as I was working. And it was part of how I got noticed. I'm not sure that that's a path that people are willing to take as advice, because it's certainly not remunerative. But honing your skill certainly is, and writing every day. A blog is invaluable for that. I read a lot of, my colleagues at the AV Club and other places. They in addition to their paid work, they also have blogs, or they'll have a Patreon where they do their own thing. And developing your own voice and finding your own niche, finding an audience that way. Especially now with, new media and all the rest of it is a lot more valuable than it ever has been. So as lame as it sounds, keep plugging away.
For sure. Andy, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, I'm a broken record. It's tough to follow Dennis there, because I 100% agree with everything he said there. You have to keep plugging away. You have to keep writing. Being mindful for developing your own voice, I think, is key. So it's not just the quantity argument. It's making sure that it's not just a perfunctory exercise. You're continuing to sort of reflect on yourself and what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are. I think, again, in this day and age, as Dennis is referencing, making sure that you have the ability to brand yourself and get your words out there when you're ready, I think is important too. Because I read a lot of the blogs that some of the SNL folk post in our group DM and everything, and they're just as good as anything that I could say. Sometimes better, frankly. So I think it's just a testament that this is a democracy. No one has inherently a better point of view or a better way to analyze the show necessarily. We're all fans of the show and lovers of the show, and that should be an asset at the end of the day.
I agree. Dennis, Andy, I do want to do some season 47 talk, if the two of you don't mind. I'd love to get into, where we're at in the show. Before I do, just to wrap up our discussion on, what you guys are doing as recappers. I don't know how often you get an opportunity to talk about your jobs and what you do. So, Dennis, is there anything else you wanted to say about your time, recapping, at the AV Club or anything like that?
I'm going to miss it.
We all are.
I don't know how much people are up on the latest news website trends, but Geo Media, who owns the AV Club, is forcing out all the Chicago staff. And I'm not part of the Chicago staff, but as a freelancer and somebody who respects the hell out of all of those people, my TV editor, Danette Chavez, is one of the finest editors and one of the finest people I've ever met, even though we've never met. because I'm in Maine and she's in Chicago. I just couldn't. I'm leaving. I'm leaving at the end of this month in solidarity with the rest of the staff. I will say that my SNL reviews have been. I got a very nice offer to write somewhere else, and I don't know that we haven't finalized everything, so I don't know if I should put that person or that publication on the spot. But keep an eye on my Twitter, and I'll let you know where to find him.
Yeah, I look forward to it. And let me just say, on behalf of all of our listeners who constantly praise your reviews, Dennis, and really just comment to me about it, like, thank you for really just like all the effort. I mean, talking about staying up till 6 a.m. every single week, regardless of what where you end up writing that stuff, just really just I'm very touched that you came on to talk with us about it, and for all the work you've done for almost a decade writing about Saturday Night Live. Just wonderful.
Well, that means a lot. Thank you.
So great to hear from Dennis and Andy in that show. Dennis is currently writing for Paste magazine. So if you want to go and read Dennis's thoughts on Saturday Night Live each week, you can do that. And Andy continues to write amazing articles for both Vulture and Entertainment Weekly on SNL. Also does the recaps every week for EW. So just really proud to have them part of our show, and encouraging, all the journalists in our community, if they would like to come on to the show, we'd love to have them as partners in our discussions of Saturday Night Live. So I hope to continue to reach out to some current ones and other former ones throughout the year to get their perspective, because I do think that the journalists have such an important view on SNL, the way they critically evaluate the show. But I appreciate that show. Like I said, February 21st, 2022. Next up, we have John Mulaney coming in to host for the 5th season in a row, a modern John Goodman, as he's coming in every single season. We'll see if it happens in season 48. So far, not yet, but he comes to host the show, and we know what to expect from Mulaney. There's a lot of tropes similar to like Timberlake back in the day, or Baldwin, or Steve Martin, or John Goodman, Hanks. There's things you look for when you see them come into the show that you're excited to see, and we knew we were going to get a Mulaney musical. But the big question was, are we going to get a Five Timers Club sketch? We didn't get one at the end of 2021 when his show was canceled due to Omicron. So the question was, are we going to make this happen? And, I think that the moment that we got was my personal favorite SNL moment of 2022, counting the second half of 47 and first half of 48, was this incredible moment where we get Please Don't Destroy, who was making a very big impact. They were a huge storyline of season 47, jumping on the show. So much talk about them and comparing them to previous filmmakers on the show. And they turn into huge stars. They're getting a movie, like crazy stuff. And their pre-tape that they have on the Mulaney episode features like Al Roker and Paul Rudd and so many references, but it turns into the Five Timers Club sketch, which was just the coolest thing, featuring, Steve Martin and Tina Fey. Elliot Gould came back to SNL, and Conan O'Brien was there. Like, how cool was that? It was just the most amazing show. I had so much fun with it. And like, it was moments like that just made me so happy and feel like validated in my efforts to talk about the show. It reinvigorated my love for the show to watch it that night. So I want to take you back to February 26, 2022, which was our hot take show that night of the Mulaney episode, which featured myself, Kalina Steckel, who was an amazing podcaster, and she was there for her first time on the show, and Andrew Haynes. And we discussed that sequence of Please Don't Destroy into the Five Timers Club sketch. And this is a little bit of a longer clip, but just one that I felt like shows you an example of some really good SNL talk from that night. Let's talk about this. So we have our Five Timers Club sketch, and we were all robbed of this a few months ago. So just to have this, let me just say, thank you, Saturday Night Live, for this, because I will just get on my thesis about this. There is no better show on television for moments like this. There's nothing that's ever existed beforehand. There's nothing that ever will exist like Saturday Night Live for moments like this. To have people show up in the Five Timers Club that you haven't seen on television on SNL since 1990, in the case of Elliot Gould, is the most magical, nostalgic feeling. And if you grew up with the show, or you went back and you watched the series over, there is nothing more fulfilling than watching a sketch like this. So thank you, SNL, because this is what SNL was made for. It's moments like this. So let's break down what we saw here, including appearances from Paul Rudd, Steve Martin, Candace Bergen, Tina Fey. James Austin Johnson got the great bartender role. We had the JT Tequila with a little Dan Aykroyd and Tracy Morgan stuff inside. We had the legendary Elliot Gould, one of the greatest original hosts of the show. And of course, a excellent appearance from Conan O'Brien, who used to write on the show just like John Mulaney and was a previous host of the show as well. All right, Haynes, handing it over to you. Give us your thoughts on what you saw tonight from the Five Timers Club.
I don't know where to start with this, so I guess I'll just start at the beginning. I mean, it's, you see that iconic, that set, that it's as soon as it happens, you're getting this five-timer sketch, you see the jackets, but immediately you get to see Steve Martin and Candace Bergen. So, just heavy hitters immediately. So you get that thrill and that shock. And obviously, they've, been in these five-timers sketches before. But yeah, whipping down to Elliot Gould in the chair, which I don't know when he snuck in there. But popping down to him was amazing. You can't predict, seeing someone that, hasn't hosted in, almost 40 years or something like that. Like, it's you just can't predict something like that. And, and so Paul Rudd got to be part of it. It was kind of a thing for him too, even though he got his jacket before, but he got to give it to Mulaney. But having Steve Martin, Candace Bergen, Elliot Gould, and then, Conan is just such a favorite of mine. He's the only late night show host that I stayed up late to watch in high school. Is the only one that really connected with me. I love that his shtick was always just kind of making an absolute ass of himself, which is so much different than the other hosts. And he's always had that, that kind of smart, stupid comedy style where he likes things to be straightforwardly stupid, but in an intelligent way, which is, it sounds a little bit paradoxical or oxymoronic, but I think that's a good way to describe Conan's style. And to just have him back was so special. Obviously, he was never, a member of the cast, and we've really only seen him in a few sketches ever. But he was a writer in there with Bob Odenkirk and Smigel, and just doing amazing work with those guys. And so, he was a writer during, for some important casts, and for sure. And so he's just obviously a stalwart, in the NBC building. But it was amazing how many times he screwed up his lines, and he just kept stumbling over himself. And really the first one that he tried twice and kind of maybe halfway got it the third time. And then, Tina, I think, was probably trying not to break, but was doing a good job, staying pretty straight faced, but maybe cracking just a little bit, as we all were. And then Conan immediately just falling into that natural Conan way of being a host and going, and for people who are listening and not watching, he's miming that he's been drinking, which is a classic thing that Conan does. He treats himself like a drunk. I have an idea that he probably doesn't drink that heavily, but he seems to always enjoy playing that role. So this was just absolutely amazing. The transition from PDD into this just was so seamless. So cool. And yeah.
It was so perfect. I mean, we didn't even touch on the transition yet, Kalina, but just that transition to go from sketch to sketch. I mean, this is not the first time in the history of Saturday Night Live that they've done something like that, but it takes you back to the old eras of the show when they would experiment with things like this. And just, it was just, there was, this 10 or 15 minute period where we had these two sketches back to back. I was just, I couldn't believe it. Our friend Ellis was one of our interns who's now worked for us. He was at dress rehearsal. He said there was a standing ovation in dress rehearsal for this, just how, amazing this was in the room. So please give us your thoughts, Kalina.
Yeah, no, so the transition it completely took me by surprise, because my roommate, who does not watch Saturday Night Live, I was like, hey, I don't know how you feel about John Mulaney, but if you want to come watch the episode with me, she did not, but she kind of like listened in the other room. And at the beginning of the episode, I was like mumbling about the 5 Timers Club. And she's like, what? I was like, it's just, they have to do it. And like, usually they do it at the beginning. And if they don't have the robes and if Steve Martin isn't there, and I was just like rambling and then they didn't do it. And I was like, okay, they're gonna, at some point, like, they're not gonna just not do it. You know, if anything, they have to be guilted into doing it because of like the circumstances surrounding Mulaney even hosting for the 5th time. So I just didn't know where they were going to place it. And then I believe from the other room, my roommate just heard a mild scream coming from the living room. And she's like, you good in there? I was like, they're doing the 5 Timers Club and Steve is here and Tina's here and Conan has showed up. And I just audibly, like every 30 seconds or so, just started losing my mind over something else. Conan being there, incredible. I will admit he is not necessarily like my late night host, just because I kind of grew up like the generation after him. So I'm more with the like SNL people as the late night hosts. That being said, I do love Conan and I understand the significance of him being on NBC and agreeing to show up. And you know, it's kind of similar in my mind to like Eddie Murphy coming back. Like when these people that were wronged or adversely affected by the national broadcast company in some way coming and agreeing to come on for the fans and clearly having a great time. Like you were saying, Haynes, like the way he flipped that line flub around and just kind of powered through it, getting a little chuckle out of Tina, who like rarely breaks. That was really fun. I will say I was absolutely maddened by the camera work in this sketch, because this is why you have dress rehearsal. This is why you go over the sketch over and over throughout the week. Now, I could also never do what the SNL crew does, so it's not to sincerely shame them, but for me, Paul's entrance, Conan's entrance, even though I didn't see Elliot's face, seeing him walk into frame and sit down, and then the top of his head and his foot being in the shot, especially as someone who works in film, was like making me crazy, because just a small adjustment of the camera would have fixed that. But those little issues also allowed for the genuine kind of like improvisations from everyone that was there in that sketch. Paul kind of getting his, you know, proper introduction and then subsequently having to pass the robe over was really funny. Tracy Morgan's aquarium water joke from Tina had me absolutely losing my mind, and I just kind of love like the product placement of the other people. Only thing missing for me was Hanks. I appreciate that Steve Martin seems to like go out of his way to make himself available for the 5 Timers.
Up when there's bad news, Kalina. I'm telling you. Yeah,
I know, but he was the only thing I missed from that sketch.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, look, I would say that watching a 5 Timers Club sketch, for me at least, I know that there was some, you know, directing miscues or whatever with camera work, whatever it was, but you know, I kind of just put all that stuff to the side, because for me, it's like going to a baseball game and watching like an old timer legend like come out and throw out the first pitch. Like you just like don't care if they throw it into the ground. Like it's just it's really what it is. It's like so for me, it's like just to have. I mean, you could have listed out every single 5 timer who's, you know, still with us, and I would have said that Elliot Gould is you know, in Vegas. I'm not betting on Elliot Gould being there. I just don't think it was going to happen. And the fact that he was there, you know, in addition, obviously the Conan stuff is super meaningful for a lot of people. So I would say, just really fascinating stuff. If I had to, you know, nitpick a couple things here and there, I did, you know, think to myself, okay, we got you know, John Mulaney. Obviously, you know, a lot of comparisons can be made to Conan, a writer who was super successful after the show that came back to host. Was kind of thinking about Larry David a little bit as well, if there was the potentially to get Larry in there, like the 3 writers who have come back and hosted the show. I think that would have been a really nice touch to something like this. And obviously, I know there's a lot of people in the chat that are nitpicking the Dan Aykroyd and Tracy Morgan choices for the drink, who are not 5 timers, but I believe that they did before Kristen Wiig was a 5 timer. I believe that they did have a Kristen Wiig Gilly drink in one of the previous sketches, so I'm assuming that was you know, a nice touch to that. Yeah, so that was just, like I said, the most incredible moment for me throughout the year, just to have that. I've gone back and rewatched that, and those are the moments I live for with SNL, where they can be meta and have fun, and just 5 Timers Club sketches are so great, including the Tom Hanks, the JT, the Drew Barrymore one, just so much fun ones over the year, so many fun ones. Really, really great stuff. So SNL continued. I mean, still many more shows in season 47. And right after that Mulaney episode, we had the Oscar Isaac episode. And March 5th, 2022, I did the Hot Take show with our friend Andrew Dick from That Week in SNL, Nicole Rovine, and Rob Finn from the Saturday Night Project. And we were all hanging out talking about the Oscar Isaac episode. And we always do this thing at the beginning of the Hot Take show where we give our headlines or hot takes from the night. And I sort of described the way that I was feeling in comparison to the week before, which I think was the sentiment of most people. But I thought it was a pretty funny analogy going back and thinking about it. And it's one that I guess our other panelists have teased me about a little bit since then throughout that month in March. So I wanted to take you back to that particular moment, March 5th, 2022, comparing the feeling of the Oscar Isaac episode to the John Mulaney episode the week before. Well, look, honestly, for me, tonight kind of feels like the day after your birthday, where you're like, oh, I had so much fun and it was so great and I'm still on a high from it, but it's not my birthday. And that's how I was feeling about this episode overall. That's like my headline for the day. It's just is that
what? Okay.
Well, this is I don't know if anybody can relate to what I'm saying as far as an analogy is concerned.
As a fellow Leo, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Thank you.
All about us. It's so special. John and I are both Leos, and I at least won't shut up about it. I completely get what you're saying. 100,000. Of course, I get it.
Yeah, like we just have this big party, people who showed up that we haven't seen in 30 years, and they came to the party.
30 years?
And, yeah,
You're not
and it's
even
like
30.
And it's like, oh my God, Elliot Gould, what are you doing at my party? And then all of a sudden, it was just like, it was like, it was good. And this is the thing, is like, I always describe Saturday Night Live as, the great episodes is a mix between really great writing and then a strong, energetic host. And I felt like what we got tonight was a very strong, energetic host. I'm not sure that the writing matched the energy that Oscar Isaac brought to the night. So that's, kind of where I'm at about things. Some worked, some didn't as much. And that's why it's always fun to go through things sketch by sketch. So panel, chat, let's do that. Yeah, you guys got to tell me, did you feel the exact same way? Maybe I'm just like too about my own birthdays. And as Nicole said, I'm not that into all the signs and stuff, but Nicole said, that's how Leos are. So maybe that explains that. But Oscar Isaac was a really good host of SNL for what it's worth. We did discuss throughout that whole week about how strong of a host he was. The writing was okay. I think it wasn't great, but the 10-1 that night, I still remember the one all about Dua Lipa. I still remember that one and laugh a lot. So that was a fun episode. But, speaking about this Five Timers Club sketch, we had another moment on the podcast this year where we did discuss that sketch. And I thought it would be important now, even though it's not chronological to the clips that I'm showing you tonight, where we discuss this sketch in more detail. And I want to flash forward to April 1st, 2022. So this would be almost a month after the Isaac Hot Take show, where we had an episode of SNL Stories. And if you don't know what that is, SNL Stories is the interview podcast that I do with James Stevens, where we go back and interview alumni of the show, including, former cast members, different, writers and production team that have been on the show throughout the many years and decades of Saturday Night Live. It's a really fun show that we get to do, hopefully many times throughout the year. And we have some other ones that we're thinking about lining up for 2023. So fingers crossed they all come together. But we'll start with one that I think is relevant to the discussion of the Five Timers Club sketch, which was the one we did with Keith Raywood, who is a production designer at Saturday Night Live, been there for so long and seen so many fun moments and sketches throughout the years. And I asked him about the Five Timers Club set and the props and how it all came together. And I also made a suggestion for what I think should be in the next Five Timers Club set whenever it happens, right? There's a lot of interesting four timers now. We now have Marty Short, who just joined the Four Timers Club. Will there be a fifth time host in 2023? We'll have to see. But if there's a Five Timers Club sketch, my big question is are we going to get this particular prop in the background that I asked for? So enjoy this clip from our conversation with Keith Raywood that happened on April 1st, 2022. You did bring it up before, so I want to talk to you about this Five Timers Club set and the sketch that we got in the Mulaney episode. And obviously for, SNL fans, the seeing that sketch was extremely iconic. I believe that we were supposed to get one during the Paul Rudd episode, but obviously that was impacted. So I would love to hear about the set design of doing something like the Five Timers Club, given how meta, it is. It's all about, celebrating the show. So what goes into producing a set like that?
Well, I actually am the one, I drew the first, that's always been I was the one that drew the first one. So I was the one that drew
Tom
the
Hanks
Five
one.
Timers.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks,
So the idea was to make it a kind of like English men's club. It's that color green and the wood and the books and, leather sofas and, it was supposed to be, that's really what it came from. It was supposed to be like a private English men's club was the vibe. And it's never really wavered from that. I mean, I kind of changed the last one we did. The one we did with, maybe it was Tina or Drew. I'm not sure who, but I honestly don't remember. But I remember because it was women, it was a woman.
I think it was Jonah Hill's one.
Well, there was one where I made it more. I made it a velvet. I brought in a velvet couch instead, and I kind of I just wanted to soften it up a little bit because there were now women entering into the picture. I mean, literally, it was just changing a little bit of furniture, but it was to make it a little less leathery. So that's what you saw the last 2 versions. I'm not sure how many times we've done it. Well, it's only been about 4 or 5 times, right, that we've actually done it.
Yeah, there was Tom Hanks, Timberlake, Jonah Hill, and then I believe John Mulaney were the 4 times you've done it. I was pretty sure. Because I think the Jonah Hill one was where you brought, you had Tina and Drew and Candace there.
Absolutely. Okay, so that was, you're absolutely right. It was because now there were ladies.
All the ladies.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, it's been done now in 3 different parts of the studio. It's not even always been in the same place.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. It's done it. Yeah, the first one might not mean anything to you, but the first one was done in the area we call Stage 5, which is up against the balcony. And then there was one with Danny Aykroyd in. I think that was the Justin Timberlake one. Was done in an area against the balcony that has historically been called the Cane, and the reason it's actually area Stage 4 we call it, but called the Cane because there was a Citizen Kane sketch done there. Many years ago, and so Leo and Gene always called it the Cane, so we still do. And then the other 2 were done in front of Stage 3, facing the audience. So it's actually, that set's been moved around and changed in size a little bit, but the overall feeling has always been the same.
Okay, can I make a pitch for you for something for the next Five Timers Club set?
John has a request. Yes.
Sure.
Okay, I have a request. Can we get a photo of Buck Henry somewhere in the set who's no longer with us?
Oh, what a great idea. What a great idea.
Yeah, so he's the only member of the Five Timers Club who's no longer with us. Would love to get like a little memorial or photo of him on the wall somewhere.
I will, you know what? That's a great idea. A little embarrassed to have not thought of it myself, but that's a really good idea. We
need to talk more, Keith.
You're absolutely true. Buck should be in there.
Thank you to Keith, who made that interview happen. I believe he was sitting in his office at 30 Rock, and thanks to our friends at NBC who helped make that happen as well. And James for always his hard work in SNL stories. Always appreciate that. So that was a really fun conversation from April 1st, 2022 with our friend Keith Raywood. All right, enough about the Five Timers Club for now until we maybe comes up in 2023, and then we can talk about it then. But let's go back just a little bit to March 14th, 2022. This was the Zoe Kravitz Roundtable the following week after Oscar Isaac, and no real expectations for Zoe. I thought she was good on the show, had some fun bits about being Catwoman and it was okay. And I think there was a really fun home movies sketch with Kenan. That's probably the one that I remember from that particular week. But we had some fun on the podcast that week, and I want to talk a little bit about, the process in which we grew our team here. So if you don't remember back when we were SNL Stats all the way back at the beginning of 2020, or let's say fall 2020, when we started at the beginning of season 46, it was just like, hey, I'm going to talk to whoever wants to talk about SNL. I reached out to some people on Twitter and Reddit, and the team sort of just grew from there. And, I really felt like between 46 and 47, I wanted to create a team on, our podcast that was more diverse, that represented more voices on the shows. And, our listeners are diverse, so our panelists should be as well. And I think we still have a long way to go. I still think that there's like more we could do to bring more diverse voices on the show and make sure everyone feels represented. That's important to me, because SNL is not just for, white men, it's for everybody. So I think it was very great that we brought on so many cool personalities, and like we hit home runs with some of these people. It's just like so cool to have them on the show and just bring on different voices. But I was so excited and encouraged by the team that we had throughout season 47. And this was a really fun show we did on March 14th, 2022. We had TJ, Amanda, and Sean on the show with us that night, 3 of our biggest personalities. And let's be real, they were teasing me about the diversity of the show and the host, and just like how much fun we were having that particular week. And it sort of blew up into a thing of its own, where there started to be a little bit of cancel Jon Schneider talk. And I know canceling people in the last few years is very, very dangerous thing to start, but they're my friends and they were just joking around and we were just having some fun on the show in our little community. But I wanted to give you some context for what people told me was the number one thing they wanted to see on the Best of 2022 special, was all of the cancel Jon Schneider stuff that they did. And I think they did it because I'm a nice guy. I think that was the reason why. But I thought it would be good to have some fun with this whole storyline that was created on the podcast. So I want to take you back to March 14th, 2022, where TJ, Amanda, and Sean come on the show and they start teasing me a little bit. Enjoy this clip. So we put together this panel. I'm assuming this show is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be really, really wild. I would say we have the King, the Queen, and the Joker with us. Is that a good comparison?
I'm not mad at that. Okay.
Hey. All right. So let's start with the King that we have here. We have King compliment himself. TJ Randolph. TJ, how are you?
I'm black to be here, John. That's what I want you to know. I'm glad to be at home and not spending money on gas, sir. I got my preacher voice on. I'm a big fan of Sean and a big fan of Amanda whenever they come on the show. So when you posted the bookings and I saw there was an opening, I was like, I gotta be on that. And so I put myself out there in front of all of our fellow hosts and was like, I want to do this show. And I Shang-Chi'd my life. I didn't know you'd actually let me do this. It's your fault for whatever happens tonight. It's like pairing me with Andrew Dick. You don't know what's going to happen, but I'm very glad to be here.
Yes, that is for sure. But TJ, that intro was okay, right? The King, Queen, and Joker. I didn't mess that up.
What? Why are you? Well, don't ask me questions like that when you live.
I'm always looking for your approval. All right, moving on. Let's bring in the Queen herself, Amanda Mitchell. Amanda, how are you?
John Jacob Jingle Schneider Schmidt. How are you? My prince, my king, I've never been happier to be somewhere on a Monday evening. Honestly, I could get a root canal tomorrow. I'd be like, well, I was here, so I'm okay.
Yes.
I'm black, and I'm here to be your nightmare. As always.
Oh my god! I'm really looking forward to it, Amanda, as always. So what a wonderful start.
Oh man, it's hot. Sorry, I'm gonna be sitting down for 5 minutes.
Sean,
oh man,
I missed you, buddy. How are you?
Oh man, I missed y'all. Yo, this is gonna be exciting. The backstage, y'all missed it. This looked like a verbal Rodney King in reverse. Like we've been whooping John's ass and we ain't even started yet, man. I love it, man. I'm all here for that. John could take the hits, man. He got a good chin. Thank you, John. We're gonna
yes.
be
such a pleasure.
I have
Wait,
never been in a fight in my life, and I'm so now ready to battle y'all. Like, I'm so sorry. This is going to be the Jon Schneider roast hour. I don't know.
Yes,
what
let's go.
He's such a sweet man. He's such a sweet man. I don't know why I love it.
It's the best ones aren't the best ones. That is not why we roast them. It's like, oh, the sweet one. Let's be mean to the nice one. Let's break him.
I mean, I said backstage, John, you're welcome for your most listened to episode because this is going to be fantastic.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, so much.
Yeah.
Much. Honestly, only thousands of hours have I put into this. All you needed to do was get the three of you in a room together.
Yeah. A little bit late after Black History Month and International Women's Day.
Okay.
Yeah. You know.
Okay. Well, I'm still here. Still, I made it, even though there was some cancel stuff. But just excited to have TJ, Amanda, and Sean on the show. We had so much fun that particular night breaking down the SNL episode. We had some really good talk about Zoe Kravitz and the sketches, and just honestly, they're like three amazing friends. I'm so proud to have them a part of the network, and really just excited to have them on the show. But I guess I like pain because I just figured I'm like, okay, how can I up the ante a little bit more? How can I make my life more crazy? And it wasn't until April 2nd, 2022, we're going to flash forward to Jerrod Carmichael's Hot Take show. And Jerrod, of course, a lot of talk that week about the Oscars and the slap. That was like the biggest thing that week. How were they going to address that? But the talk on the podcast was not just about Jerrod Carmichael. There was more cancel Jon Schneider. And instead of TJ, Amanda, and Sean, it was TJ, Amanda, and Andrew Dick on the show for the Carmichael Hot Take show. And this show went off the rails 30 seconds into it. Our chat was going nuts. I was getting texts like, what is going on? And it was so funny. Amanda prepared some props. Hope you enjoy. Okay, so hold your hot takes because I want to introduce everybody, and then we're going to get to all the hot takes.
But just glad to be here, TJ and Amanda. I've never met before, but just ready to go.
Okay. All right. Okay. Looking forward to hearing your takes. Amanda, how are you doing? Welcome to the show.
John. Happy Saturday.
Girl, it is Sunday.
TJ, don't start with me. It is too early in the morning for you to start with me already. Okay. Anyway,
Okay,
John, I love you. I just
you
want to
too,
say
yeah.
I'm so happy to see you. Thank you so much for having me on this
Of course.
incredible, momentous episode. I will be adding my mother's commentary because she couldn't help but give me all of her issue. But also, I have to introduce the fifth host of this episode.
Oh no! Oh no!
Yes!
Yes!
How did I become the Colin Jost of this podcast? That's what I want to know. When did this happen?
Have you seen your hair? Like, or do you talking about?
Have you seen your face?
I never bought a fairy. That never happened.
Also, for the listener, Amanda is holding up a literal red flag that is adorned with ribbons that says "Cancel Jon Schneider," and I'm a proud supporter of that movement as well.
Truly,
by the way, truly wonderful.
The co-founder,
by the way,
the CEO, and head curator of the hashtag Jon Schneider hashtag. I had to make sure that our people were represented. And if you want to, John, we can auction this off for $0.
Hey,
I will buy that.
Andrew Dick will buy that.
I will bid on that, no doubt.
It also has glitter glue on it, listeners.
I love that you sent me a video.
Wait, can I get panel?
No, John, this is not your show anymore.
This is the Amanda Mitchell Network now.
Yeah. It's
hold on now. Sorry, TJ is right here.
Wait, TJ, you've been talking and nobody knows who you are. So let me introduce TJ Randolph to the podcast. You've heard him speak already out of turn. So TJ, in turn, welcome to the show.
John. I'm a little stressed actually to be here. You see, because in front of me, I have my to-do list. All right.
Oh no, is it a red flag?
And for the viewer, you'll see that on my to-do list it says to take vitamins, shake ass, and cancel Jon Schneider. I've gotten two of these three things done today, and I'm here to take care of the third. All right, you're done. You got that?
Yes.
It's history for you, Schneider.
Yeah, so when we were doing the bookings for these 3 episodes, I was talking to our wonderful intern Hallie, and she said, "When do you want Amanda and TJ on for this run of episodes?" And I said, "You know what? Let's just throw Andrew Dick, get Amanda, get TJ, get them at the beginning. Let's get them out of the way, so we can talk SNL for the rest of the run." So this was a really fun moment back in the spring, and it does go to show you, like, we can have emotional, serious talk about SNL, but we can also have a lot of fun with the podcast. So I hope you enjoyed that show. And if you want to hear more talk about Jerrod Carmichael, we had great shows that week as well. So before we move forward with the rest of April, I do want to go back to one more clip from March. And this is a clip from one of our shows called the Superfan Takeover. And if you don't know what the Superfan Takeovers are, they are really fun shows that happen on SNL off weeks that are hosted by Sammy K, Bill Kenny, Andrew Haynes, and Andrew Haskell, 4 of our OG panelists going all the way back to the original days of SNL Stats. They are amazing SNL minds who talk about really fun topics, including, famous Christmas sketches, famous Valentine's Day sketches, the best digital shorts of all time, really fun, random assortment of topics. And of course, if you have ideas for the Superfan Takeovers, definitely let the guys know. But in March of 2022, since it was, March Madness time and typical of brackets, we decided to do a bracket on the Superfan Takeover. And since we had recently installed the soundboard, which we play sound clips from for most of our shows from SNL, we thought it would be fun to go back through the history of the show and play the greatest SNL catchphrases of all time as sound clips. So in this clip, we're going to have some fun with some of the sound clips that we played, in particular, one very juicy one. I hope you enjoy and check out all of the shows from our friends Sammy, Bill, Haynes, and Haskell. So one of these is the 2, one of these is the 7.
Not going to do it.
By the great Dana Carvey, okay, playing George H.W. Bush, versus another very funny catchphrase that I'll just have to play because I laugh at it every time.
You like the juice, eh?
All right, so this is going to be a fun one to talk about. Haskell, start us off.
Again, I feel like we keep doing these things that we come back that we say to ourselves. Or say ourselves, and in my everyday life, like in my job, I still find myself saying, like, not gonna do it. Like, somebody asks you to do something, not gonna do it. And I also just think it's one of those defining SNL qualities where it was an impression and it was something that they took and it helped almost define the way that people looked at the real person. And I think that's a huge part of it. So not going to do it. Not going to vote against it.
Okay. All right. Sammy, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Haskell, pinned down on a pretty good point there to where, you kind of look at the political impressions that I've done on the show today versus in that era. And, not going to do it is something that you very much associate with the real life person, even maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think he ever really said that, did he? Or maybe I'm wrong. So, exactly. Versus like now, especially in the Trump era, it was very much just like repeating things that you heard in the news. So I got to go with not going to do it.
Okay. All right, Bill, heading over to you.
Not only did he never say it, but he was one of the few sitting presidents to come on to the show and have to point out the fact that he never said not gonna do it. So yeah, I mean, this just like Haskell said, I still say this in everyday life, and you like it, the juice, not that strong of a contender against something this iconic to me.
Yeah, Haynes, any you like it, the juice praise?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I just never hear anyone reference it. I just don't really hear anybody say it. And yeah, I think the best point we've made so far, is the one that Haskell made early on, which is that, yeah, it kind of, and Bill referenced, him having to come defend it, that it really did kind of define his character in the audience's eyes. So yeah, I got to go with not going to do it. And that is one that I definitely do hear people reference a lot still.
Yeah, same here. Definitely, for sure. I mean, as far as you like it to juice, I definitely have heard people say this, especially in, especially like.
Where are you hanging out, John?
Well, let me tell you, I believe that the times that I've heard this is when I've been like on a trip with friends and we've gone like down to, let's say, like Miami or something, and we've rented like an Airbnb, and then we're all getting groceries, and like that has come up or something. It's like, okay, we're gonna buy some anybody want to buy some orange juice? You like it a juice? Like that has come up. So I wanted to move it on, but
not gonna do it.
So we're gonna move on with another Dana Carvey very famous catchphrase.
Haskell, I'm glad you brought that sentiment up, and because it does kind of bring me back to I was able to see Adam Sandler live perform that song when he was taping his Netflix special, and it may be cheap to go with the kind of pulling at the heartstrings sort of sentiment, but I don't think there was a dry eye in the house. And again, we're talking about a comedy show, right? But, there is something a little bit more that kind of defines like an iconic, catchphrase. And I think that extra juice of it.
Sammy.
You like the juice, eh?
I knew that was coming. I knew it was not intentional, but I'm going with living in a van down by the river for this one.
So after Jerrod Carmichael hosted the show, we then had Jake Gyllenhaal host. And yeah, this episode was okay. I mean, I don't think that there was anything too crazy. I think a lot of the talk was like, is he going to go back to address the red scarf stuff from Taylor Swift being on the Jonathan Majors episode in the fall, and all the talk about All Too Well? So that was like the big discussion on the podcast that week. And then Lizzo comes in and is double duty hosting. And I got some great feedback about Lizzo as a host, over the summer. I heard from some people who were to the show, they loved her. So that was great. And of course, she just came back as the musical guest this past episode that we saw in December. So replacing Yeah Yeah Yeahs, and just Lizzo, obviously a big friend of the show. So really some fun episodes that we covered then. But then between that show and the May episodes, our final run of season 48, we teamed up with another podcast, our friend of the show, Jamie Dew, and now Thomas Senna. Also, they just work so hard on the SNL Hall of Fame. If you're not aware of what that show is, that is a podcast out there where they nominate people for the Hall of Fame. And if they're in their second season, it is a really fun companion piece to everything we do here, where they go back and people, all different voices, some voices from our network, go and nominate people for the Hall of Fame. And Jamie came to me with an idea, and he said, could we do some sort of cross-platform show where it's on the SNL Hall of Fame, but it's also on the SNL network, where we have a debate, a roundtable about the nominees that could potentially be on the ballot to be voted in for the Hall of Fame. And I had different voices from the network, including Andrew Dick, Bill Kenny, Nicole Rovine, on the show with me to debate the nominees and announce their ballots. And Jamie hosted this show. It was a really great back and forth, a very long show on May 1st, 2022. But of course, the part that I had to clip out was, should Justin Timberlake get into the Hall of Fame? Obviously, I was going to nominate him, but would Nicole or Andrew or Bill put him on their ballots? And we had a very fun debate. And I even came up with a proposal for Nicole to get JT on her ballot. Would it work to get him into the Hall of Fame? Let's watch the clip. Okay. I mean, I couldn't, anybody who knows me knows I couldn't do a Hall of Fame ballot without putting my guy Justin Timberlake on the ballot. And I honestly think that, again, baseball comparisons, there was Babe Ruth. We talked about, the steroids era and stuff, but like Mike Trout came along, people say he's the greatest baseball player of all time. And that's because he can do everything. And so can Justin Timberlake. So, I mean, the guy acts, he performs, he writes. I mean, he's been in some of the biggest moments in recent times. I mean, I think enough time has passed, to be honest with you. I mean, he hasn't been on the show very much over the last era. I think enough time has passed.
Yeah, he's very much like a Buck Henry, where he has his era and that's it.
Yes. And he is totally representative of like the host of that era of the show. Mm-hmm. I think that he opened up the 40th anniversary. He was the cold open with Jimmy Fallon and, singing about all the past moments on the show. And I just think that he's been there for some of the biggest moments. And the most wonderful thing about the Justin Timberlake episode, and I was a big NSYNC fan and I was really excited to have him on the show, but there's a lot of SNL fans who were not big NSYNC people. They were not into pop music. It wasn't the type of music that you typically heard on the show. Obviously there was, Britney Spears was on the show a couple times. Backstreet Boys were on the show, but when NSYNC came on and then people found out in 2003 that Justin Timberlake was going to be hosting the show, people were not excited. They were like, what is this pop star going to come on, be a complete diva, not be great? And he came on and he just crushed it. Obviously, he did a lot of great things with Jimmy Fallon, and you saw their connection right away, and we've seen that throughout the years. But then my biggest argument is Jimmy Fallon leaves the show and Justin Timberlake comes on and he builds new rapport with other cast members. He builds this thing with Andy Samberg, who to me, it's very, very difficult for a host to transition over from era to era and have, important sketches with different types of cast members. And Justin Timberlake can pull that off in a way that Steve Martin could pull that off. And I just think that it's you have to like Justin to want to put him in the Hall of Fame. And I know that he's polarizing for some people, but I just have to say, if you just look at his work on the show, to me, it is as a resume, so clear cut how fantastic of a host he was.
Yeah, he's not on my list, but I can't disagree with anything you've said. It's just that the fact that those episodes are intensely polarizing to people, and usually I'm on the side that I enjoy most of his episodes. They do get very samey. We do build a returning well of sketches to the point where I there was one time, forget what episode it's in, but he comes on Weekend Update and basically says, I wasn't able to host this week, but here's the fake episode we would have done. And it's basically the episode they will do the next time he's back on. And
but
so
name me
even
another host that could do that. Name me anybody else who can say that they have a hosting platform that looks exactly how it's going to look when that host hosts. And you may hate that.
For better or for worse is the thing, of here's all the sequel sketches we'll do, and here's how it's going to look, is almost more damning towards SNL than it is Justin Timberlake, who I feel is, again, a very game performer. And that moment is more speaking of the fact that the show had almost kind of run out of ways to run at what we can do with Justin. And so, again, he is not on my ballot, but I do go to bat for the episodes he's in. I do love the Bee Gees sketches with him and Jimmy. Those do hit in a very Bee Gees centric part in my soul, and so there's always that. But again, he's just one. You can't ask for much more from an SNL host than him. But still, strangely, he is not on my ballot tonight.
And by the way, let me just say one more thing before Bill goes. Respectfully, I would like to say, from a statistics perspective, the top sketch lists for hosts that have never been cast members, but only hosts on the show: Alec Baldwin, Steve Martin, John Goodman, Tom Hanks, Buck Henry, Justin Timberlake. Top 6. I mean, he just fills out every single check box that there can be. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, he's on my list. Easy one for me. This probably, if you got in a time machine and talked to me in 1999 or 2000 and said, this dude from NSYNC is going to host and he's going to be really good, I would have asked, what are you smoking, and pass it, please. There's no way I would have thought that this guy would do what he did. And I probably, if there was Twitter back in 2003, I probably would have been bashing this episode before it came on. But his first 2 episodes are complete classics, top to bottom. And yeah, there is some diminishing returns as he came back. But is there anybody we want more to come back right now? I mean, it's been 7 years. I know you, John. I know you want him back, but I think in general, I think this is one of those guys. This is one of those hosts where you would be so excited to see his name pop up on the cards.
I don't know. Me personally, at this point, I feel it is very much like a Buck Henry, where it would almost cheapen it to bring Justin back. Of like, no, his era, it's already been so long. That was it. That was his time.
Yeah, but Steve Martin went 6 years between 80 and 86. So
yeah, true. True.
Find a way
I don't
back.
know. I don't know if it would completely work. I mean, it would be interesting to see, but I feel the show would then need to lean into coming up with new things for Justin.
Yeah.
And that indeed would be interesting to see. You could not rely on the template that they established for his shows so much that he is commenting on them in weekend updates that he's not hosting. So it would be very intriguing, but that is also kind of why he was not on my list of it did get very samey. There was a formula built out of Justin hosting the show.
Yeah, he was not on my list. I don't have like anything against him, but he didn't make the cut for me. And I think like when you're saying that I don't know that it's so amazing that once Jimmy Fallon left, he was like all of a sudden he could be buddies with Andy Samberg. Like that's not like a crazy leap, respectfully. So I don't think that really shows versatility to like have one from one of them to the other one. And if anything, like the fact that he hasn't been back in so long, it's like, why not? Like he like had these kind of little eras, like kind of overlapping. I guess you could give him kind of 2 eras, but you couldn't give him 3 eras. Like I don't think you could really call it that. And so yeah, I just feel like he was impactful on the show for like not more than a decade. I guess it was about a decade, and then he was on the 40th. Yeah, it was like a solid like decade, a decade and change.
20% of the show, though.
Yeah,
right. I know, and I guess it's like maybe in terms of this Hall of Fame conversation, because it's been a while, then it's more likely to be like put in. Whereas like Miley has had the same decade and change pretty much. It's just been more recent. So I mean, I don't know that they're even that different from each other in the way that their SNL careers have gone. The other thing is I think there was a lot of luck, just like with Lonely Island, even though Lonely Island is on my list and Justin's not. I think that we're talking about that era of this very interesting time in American culture of like that like 2003 time of like the low-rise jeans and the cardigans and the shawls on the red carpet and like all these crazy things and the that's what I think of, like Ashley Tisdale and her red carpet looks like
just
a weird
bad times,
weird stuff going on.
Bad times.
And but that's why, if anything, I give more props to like the show and the producers and casting, and I guess it was Marcy Klein at that time. Like it's like more on them than on Justin to be like, oh, we have to lean into this weird vibe like of this era. Like we have to like have Justin Timberlake become an SNL staple if we're even going to survive this weird time. Like it has to be like that. So I kind of give more credit to the show than Justin. I think he walked into a lot of luck, and he delivered on that luck.
Blasphemous.
He executed.
Wow.
And I'm not even
that is a
looks could
truly
kill.
Unique,
Okay. All right, this is absolutely insane. But this is what I would say, Nicole. I will make a promise to you. Okay, when I fill out my ballot, you made an argument and you said you don't know that Miley Cyrus is that different from Justin Timberlake. Well, you love Miley Cyrus and you nominated her for the ballot. I will put Miley Cyrus on my ballot if you put Justin Timberlake on yours.
Oh wow!
What is this? Like fake Monopoly rules?
So
what is going on?
I have more spots. I have more spots
So
on my ballot.
Miley will be your. You have 12 still, or did you? Cut down?
I did my 12. I'll make Miley my.
I'll trade your Ackroyd. I'll trade my Ackroyd for your.
I have somebody I could drop. Done. I have
Go
somebody
fish.
Yeah, done. It's done.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, done.
Yes, and
Wait,
Jamie,
wait.
What?
What does Miley need? Does Miley need 66%? Miley needs 3 of us. So actually, your vote isn't that valuable to me.
Yeah,
no, that's not true.
It doesn't help.
It just.
Oh, all three of us? Okay, well, wait.
No, does Miley need 3 of us or 2 of us?
There's also a larger voting pool, but yeah.
Oh, is
Right,
there a
but-
larger voting?
But
Oh,
only
my
for
goodness.
this episode. Because if you agree, like, does that even help me, or do I really need 3 of the 4 to agree, or does it not matter?
Jamie?
Well, it doesn't really matter because
Doesn't
we
really
don't know how
matter?
many people are going to vote.
Really
like
matter.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. That's fine.
We're doing this.
Yeah.
Jamie, let me just say one more thing. If Justin Timberlake does not get into the Hall of Fame this year, I am nominating myself to be on the episode that nominates him back next year.
All right.
That was just a great show. Again, so much coverage that we do here that was sort of in an off week, but if you missed that show and want to go back, I still think it's relevant to today. It's just a fun show to go back and listen to. So that was great. And no, Justin Timberlake did not get in the first year, but maybe he will get in the second year. He's still eligible. So there's going to be some voting coming up with Jamie. Definitely check out SNL Hall of Fame on all social platforms to see what is up with that and what shows that they're producing for 2023. I nominated some more people for the ballot on that show. So great podcast. Okay, so now we're in May. I mean, our last run of season 47, and it starts off with returning host Benedict Cumberbatch coming back for the first time since, I think, 2016. That sounds right. And he was good. I remember, enjoying this particular week. I was actually in New York City for the Hot Take show that week. So I just got I met a lot of really cool people from the show, got to hear their thoughts on the week. And I talked about that a little bit on the roundtable of that particular week. And then Selena Gomez comes in for the following episode. Selena was fantastic. Just, so happy for her that she got to do the show. And then it was Natasha Lyonne hosting the season finale of season 47. And the news had broken about maybe 24 to 48 hours in advance of the show that there was going to be some cast members leaving, including Kate McKinnon, Aidy Bryant, Pete Davidson, potentially. And it was emotional. Just, this was potentially the end of an era. And we didn't know at the time how many cast members were going to leave. The most since 1995, really, just that turnover was crazy. But, it was just, I was on my game. I was ready to go. It was okay, this is it. This is the time where all eyes are on us to talk about what this means for Saturday Night Live. So Natasha Lyonne is coming in to host the show, but it's really about Kate and Aidy and Pete and Kyle and, little did we know, Alex and Melissa and Aristotle and, I guess Chris. Yeah. It just kept going. But this is going to be the episode on a rewatch that is going to be a monumental episode in terms of being the beginning of an end of an era. So let's go back to May 21st, 2022, the Natasha Lyonne Hot Take Show, where I was with Nicole Rovine, Anthony Conway, and TJ Randolph to wrap up season 47. And in particular, I want to show you our thoughts on a very emotional cold open, which, fun fact, was not supposed to be the cold open. It wasn't the cold open in Dress, in which we did talk about that night. But we had our final alien abduction sketch with Kate McKinnon, and we talked about how emotional it was, Kate saying goodbye to the show at the time, which was a very big deal. So enjoy our discussion of that, a monumental, historic night of Saturday Night Live. I think that there's been a general consensus of hey, this cast has stayed on too long, and maybe that is true. Maybe there are cast members who've stayed longer than the usual. But I think now is the time when the cast members leave to be thankful for some of the great moments we've seen from them in the last, several amount of years. I mean, look, we know how toxic social media can be sometimes, and comedy can be super subjective. We at the podcast here always like to make comedy as objective as possible when we're discussing the numbers and the stats and all those things. So I totally get it if not every single person on the cast is your flavor or for you. But, these people put in so many years of hard work at SNL and clearly are some of, the longest and most successful cast members in the history of the show. Let's celebrate them the best we can as we talk about their careers over the next few months and look ahead towards season 48. So that's really my PSA for you, the listeners, as we begin to talk about the show tonight. Okay.
Can I ask a question about that?
Of course, TJ. Yeah, wouldn't be a hot take show without you interrupting.
You finished your sentence.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
My only question, I mean, that's fair. That's a fair assessment of my whole life. My only question is, I want to do all that celebration, but can I do it at 98%? Can I just leave Baby Yoda out of that celebration, and then everything else is it's just like raving reviews? I just want to know if. Okay, all right, cool. I just wanted to.
We can do that. Yeah, we could do that
Okay,
for sure.
great,
And
great,
yes,
great.
of course, there's ups and downs with everybody, but tonight we'll talk about more of the ups. Okay. Let's talk about this cold open that we saw. So what we consider canon here is what we saw on the live show. So on the live show, we were given this final close encounter sketch. And this, if you talk about what's gone beyond the typical SNL fandom, I think Kate McKinnon is most known for this Colleen Rafferty character that she's had. It's the 7th final encounter that we got. And, all of the moments between, her describing her coot and prune shoot and all the other ways that Kate has said that over the sketches, over the years. I mean, she just falls into this character so perfectly and has had so much fun with it. And just the moment of her, walking up, being abducted by the aliens and saying, thanks for letting me stay on a while, was really emotional and beautiful to see. We haven't seen this character on SNL since 2019, the finale of season 44. So Nicole, how did it feel to see this cold open up with Kate McKinnon saying goodbye to us at Saturday Night Live?
For me, it was, so when I was there in person, I cried. I really it was, so it wasn't the cold open, but the fact that it was chosen as the cold open, ultimately, when I saw that watching on my television, I was so happy because it just encompasses everything that Kate McKinnon is. She has this character and so many kooky, unique characters that she's done over the years. And then she also is the queen of cold opens. She's done all these political impressions there. So to put that Colleen Rafferty character into the cold open spot, it's just giving Kate McKinnon the ultimate goodbye and honoring her in every way that we can. And really the reason that I teared up was just the symbolism in the words that were chosen, saying that, sometimes she feels like an alien. She's referenced that in interviews and in sketches and when she speaks as herself on the show. And then really what broke me down was when she said, thanks for letting me stay a while. And I felt that so deeply from what you're talking about, Jon, is how there is criticism that people stayed on perhaps longer than certain, audience members and fans had kind of hoped for, but I think when she said, thank you for letting me stay, I was like, no, thank you for giving us so much. And the second she said that, it was so impactful because for her to say, I know I've been around a really long time and you've given me the audience has given her so much just of their lives. And when she said thank you, I was like, wow, it's been my pleasure as an audience member, as a viewer, as a fan, to witness everything that she is. So for her to say all that stuff, it was so emotional and in true just Kate fashion, just being so funny and hopping onto that spaceship. I mean, what a beautiful cold open. And we've been tracking Live from New York, and there have been a few cold opens that Kate was in and she didn't say Live from New York. And we have to wonder, Jon and I, we talk about this stuff constantly. I know that this wasn't the planned cold open, but maybe the show was going to wait so that Kate could have her 75th Live from New York at the finale. And that's what happened. And so I just have to wonder if there's something intentional there. So it was just so perfect and wow, beautiful.
Yeah, it was really, really nice. TJ, how did you feel about seeing Kate McKinnon send off for the cold open?
I mean, I thought it was... how am I going to say this? I thought it was really warm. I thought it was very well earned. She's I can't forget, we can't curse. She's a gosh darn queen is what she is. And it was a rightful, they kind of put her in that front spot. But the thing I love the most is that she gave us, I mean, she had that also end sketch, the 10-1, but she made us completely laugh about dong holes and wrong holes and pubic hair picking. And then it automatically, that's why I love comedy so much, because you can still get to moments of sincerity that like that was what we started that's what we started our sketch with. And then we ended with this beautiful emotional moment, seeing this absolute queen, this icon of SNL, be sent off with these bug-eyed aliens. And I'm like, this is, I love so much that like we got to still be silly here. Not that I'm asking that like, oh, anything should have been lost, but I'm like, man, it's like just like a weird transition, but I love it. It's not even weird. It's just, it worked. And I just really dug the, like how we could still go from that absolute like ridiculousness to that full on sincerity. And you could still be in that moment. It was very captivating.
For sure. And I love that there was this line she said at one point during the sketch where she's like, what the hell, play the hits. And I just thought that was so perfect to encapsulate the night a little bit, because we knew what we were expecting coming up. Anthony, were you excited to get the 7th edition of the Final Encounter sketch?
Absolutely. I like when fan service is done well. This is a character that we enjoy. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I really enjoy moments in the show when you see a cast member doing something so ridiculous and so hilarious that somebody breaks. So I've always looked forward to catching this one whenever they do this sketch. And like everybody else mentioned, super well deserved. Felt like, a super great moment. And then we get this really tender, like kind of way of landing it out. And I thought that her live from New York was just really, really lovely. So yeah, overall, as soon as like, the sketch kind of set up for the cold up at the very top of it, I had a smile on my face. And I didn't leave until the sketch was wrapped.
So that was it for season 47. We had a great roundtable, a really fun patron feedback show that week, which, by the way, I didn't even get to talk about so far, but our patron shows are so fantastic. That's the show where people send in questions every week, and I get to talk to our biggest supporters of the podcast, who, if you want to podcast with us, by the way, there's still opportunities. You can go to patreon.com/the SNL Network and sign up today to be on shows in 2023. And we have amazing supporters of the podcast who are our patrons. You can't thank them enough for all the contributions to season 47 and to season 48, and really just some great shows. We had a really fun patron feedback show that last week where we had Andrew Haskell on, and we had all these patrons calling in to give their thoughts on the end of the season. So that is a great show to go back to. We had our postseason roundtable show where we broke down everything from the entire season, and then we had our final by the numbers show of the year, which we haven't talked about by the numbers yet, which is now a weekly show on the podcast, but in season 47 it was a monthly show. And that is a show where we have Mike Murray, very famous SNL analytics guru, who has screen time analytics on the history of SNL and the cast members. He does them every single week. He is so fantastic and an absolute genius. And him and Nicole have become such a good analytics team where they get together and they talk about the analytics of SNL each week. At the end of season 47, we had our final wrap up season 47 by the numbers show. And this was the longest podcast we have ever done on the SNL network. It was about 4.5 hours. So if you listen to the whole thing, God bless you. I appreciate you. But we went back, and basically what we were doing that night, and the reason it took so long, was we wanted to go through every single cast member, all 21 of them, analytically, and give our ratings on their season from 1 to 10. Normally, SNL, when we're talking about it, we talk about sketches we like and stuff like that. But, when it comes to numbers, normally we're subjective a little bit. But when it comes to numbers, we try and be objective. And it was very hard to give ratings objectively, but we tried to look into the analytics and say, what makes a good SNL season? Give them a 10. Bad season? Give them a 1. And it was quite the task. But here's a brief look at the final numbers of that exercise we went on that night, where we evaluated every single cast member from season 47. We'll see if we can do this again for season 48. It was quite the undertaking, but I appreciate all those who check that out and do listen and enjoy our statistics portion of the podcast, the By the Numbers show. Always a big shout out to Mike and Nicole for that. So enjoy this clip.
Lower 9, like Chris Red had, but I think it's a very fair score for Bowen, and he's not going anywhere, and we're going to look forward to, I think, a better season next year for him and Chloe.
Okay, so in his third season, Mike Murray gives Bowen Yang an 8. The patrons just gave Bowen an 8. It came out to about a 7.6, which rounds up to an 8 for Bowen. So the patrons, Nicole and Mike, all gave Bowen an 8. I gave Bowen a 7 for this season. And we have our final season 47 ratings. And this has been a fun journey. I'm going to read them out in, I guess I'll try ascending order. So at the bottom, we have Aristotle with a 3. We have Punky Johnson coming in with a 4. Our 5s are Pete Davidson and Melissa Villasenor. At a 6, we have Michael Che, Chloe Feynman, Alex Moffat, Kyle Mooney. Our 7s from the season are Mikey Day, Heidi Gardner, Colin Jost, Ego Wodem, and Sarah Sherman. Coming in at 8s are 80 Bryant, Andrew Dismukes, James Austin Johnson, Kate McKinnon, and Cecily Strong. Oh, and Bowen Yang as well. At 9s, Chris Redd and Kenan Thompson. So, wow, great seasons for them on the show. And yeah, I mean, almost 4.5 hours into this exercise. I hope that you guys enjoy this, because this is something that we are testing out for the future. Obviously, we can try and speed up the process just a little bit, but I thought this was a good way to evaluate the cast members and give them all their due as we talked about the season. So, it's just been so much fun all season long to talk about the analytics of Saturday Night Live, and I've enjoyed getting to do that. Like I said, longest podcast ever on the SNL network, could potentially be, and maybe somebody can correct me if they're an SNL podcast completist, might be the longest podcast ever about Saturday Night Live. So wouldn't be surprised if that was us. So that would be very fun to take a look at. So that was June 6th, 2022, well into the summer as we started to, enjoy the summer months, getting ready for season 48. And if you stuck with us over the summer, we had some really fun shows, starting with our career retrospectives, where we went back and we talked about Kate McKinnon, 80 Bryant, Kyle Mooney, and Pete Davidson's times at Saturday Night Live. And I'm really, really proud of those shows that we did with some of our panelists on them. I think if the cast members themselves went back and listened to those shows, they would feel like a really cool sense of just pride about their times at the show. And I think they would feel like we were really fair to them. So definitely check those out if you haven't gone back and listened to them. Those shows are definitely still relevant to today. And then, the first big moment we did have over the summer, if you stuck with us, was on June 24th, 2022. We got to talk to Chris Redd. And this was just really cool. I was approached, by one of our patrons with an opportunity where our patron Dave told me that, Chris is about to perform in Calgary, and there's an opportunity to speak to him before his performance about, his tour that he's doing over the summer, and to ask him some questions about season 47 of SNL. And I was like, yeah, of course, love to talk to Chris. So this was a really great opportunity to get to go and do that. So spoke to Chris Redd, and I hope you enjoy some of our conversation with Chris, where he talked about his time in season 47. So cool. And I think you hit on something really well, Chris, which was just that the listeners tell us all the time they feel like you are having fun at the show. And that's what comes off the screen. And I think that's why you're connecting with so many listeners and so many watchers of Saturday Night Live. So really, really impressive. I would love to ask you, do you have a favorite host that you did work with in season 47? We saw so many one-time hosts this season that just came in. They're new to the show. Did you connect with anyone specifically?
Yeah, I mean, it was, me and Jerrod were already cool coming in, so I think that's kind of a cheat to pick him. But there was a lot of dope hosts. I had a lot of fun with a lot of folks. I said I had fun with Kim, but I didn't have as much fun as other people did.
Oh yeah.
And that's a joke. And no, Kim was awesome though. Kim was dope. But Lizzo may have been one of my favorites hosts to come in there, bro. Her and Ariana was super dope. I mean, we had Zoe too. We had a lot of dope hosts, man. But Lizzo was super fun. And I think Lizzo takes it because, I came in there and I was like, yo, I got an idea where you play the flute and you twerk in a symphony orchestra. And she was down like immediately. And so I was like, yeah, you're my favorite person in the world. Anybody that's going to twerk for comedy, you got my heart, man,
Yeah, that was awesome. So obviously one of the big storylines coming out of season 47 is we had these 4 legendary cast members decide to move on from the show. How are you feeling about the changes to the cast going into 48? And do you think that there should be new cast members added, or are you happy with the group you have now?
I think well, first of all, definitely gonna miss those four, man. Like they are worth a job to me. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know that show without them being there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, like me and Peter, we're all real friends. So we're gonna talk. You know what I'm saying? And Pete was already not there half the week anyway. So I'm only gonna miss him on Saturdays. But it's gonna be interesting. It's like it's a bittersweet moment because they're all going to be huge stars and continue to have their star rise. And I'm really happy for them, and it's all part of the growth of this thing. But it's gonna be weird walking in and not seeing their faces, man. It just really is till they come back to host, As far as the crew we have, we just gel so tight, man. I feel like we finally got a voice of the show, and it's going to be some changes and all of that. And I think new blood really invigorates everybody else. So that's always cool. I don't think we need too much more because, it'd be nice to have some space for everybody to like kind of find their lanes and really have time on screen. But that's the nature of the beast of SNL is that there's always young new talent there, and so I'm sure we'll see new faces, and I'm excited to see what the changes are. I usually don't even think about SNL until we're closer to coming back, but y'all made me turn it on for a little bit, so now I'm here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, we definitely appreciate it. That was just the coolest interview. Thank you to Chris and his team for setting that whole thing up. Really appreciate that. And of course, Dave for his help putting that together, and just getting to talk to Chris over the summer was a real highlight for me throughout my SNL podcasting career, and appreciate everybody who enjoyed that. But, the Chris Redd story wasn't over for 2022. I want to take you ahead a little bit in time. We're going to jump forward to something we did towards the end of the summer. This is in September 19th, 2022. I thought, you know what? There was other cast members we didn't get to do retrospectives on. So why don't we go back and why don't we talk to some of our panelists about Aristotle Atari, Alex Moffat, Melissa Villaseñor, who are all leaving the show. And it was just a fun show that night. We were live on a Monday, and then the news broke. People start in the chat. I could see some chattering. I'm like, what's going on? And then email pops up on the right side of my screen. Chris Redd leaving Saturday Night Live. And just to see our faces and to have this moment live on the show was one of the funniest live moments. Obviously wishing Chris well and hoping he does a great career ahead of him. We know he will. He's just so talented. But I just thought this moment was such a great podcast moment to include in this clip show. So here is us just hanging out, talking about the other cast members who are leaving. But wait, there's one more. It's Chris. There were moments there that we really could have gotten more of. And I also love of course, the Carlitos sketch that we got on Weekend Update. That's the one that I was thinking of before with this moment.
That's the worst mistake she's made since she gave birth to Carlitos.
Yeah, crazy. So I have some breaking news just happening right now, which okay. This is a little crazy, but this is happening on the podcast, and I just saw the chat just told me as well, but I couldn't confirm it unless I got something from NBC Universal. So we're going to pause the Melissa Villaseñor talk. That's sort of why I was stumbling over my words while I was trying to be able to say this. But I did just get an email from NBC Universal, so I'm going to read this live on the podcast for all of you. Chris Redd will be departing Saturday Night Live after 5 seasons on the show. Chris Redd says that being a part of SNL has been the experience of a lifetime. 5 years ago, I walked into 30 Rock knowing that this was an amazing opportunity for growth. Now, with friends who have become family and memories I will cherish forever, I'm grateful to Lorne Michaels and to the entire SNL organization. From the bottom of my heart, I can't thank you enough. Up next, Redd has the HBO Max comedy special, Chris Redd, Why Am I Like This?, which will premiere later this year. He co-created and is set to voice a lead role in a yet-to-be-titled project from Broadway Video and Audible. He is also attached to star in the feature film Cyber Monday, which is currently in development at Universal. So thanks for NBC, who literally just sent this to me at 9:01 p.m. So sorry, Melissa, we're going to bump you for a second while we break down this breaking news. So while I process this for a minute, Kalina, any thoughts?
I would love to know how many more last-minute polls NBC is going to do before the season starts. I really am not prepared to handle much more. Wow, I don't know. I love Chris. I know that's so weird. I just saw him the second to last time I was in New York, I think in May, I was just outside 30 Rock and he was just like randomly coming in. And I can't explain it, but like the vibe seemed off, like something seemed off. And I was like, good luck, like kill it at writing night. And he was like, yeah, thanks. And he just awkwardly walked inside. So now I can't help but like overanalyze that moment and wonder how much of this was pre-planned. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, so I got to spend a little bit of time with Chris Redd this summer, actually.
Yeah.
And we got to interview him on the podcast, so thankfully we could do that. I know at the time he was preparing for season 48. I got to also spend some time with him during Just for Laughs, where I saw a bunch of his shows and hung out with him a little bit after the shows. And I had no indication that he was leaving Saturday Night Live, and I don't think he was planning on leaving SNL at the time. So I think something has changed between July and now. So this is sort of catching me off guard for sure. Victoria, how are you feeling about Chris Redd leaving Saturday Night Live? Breaking news.
Speechless.
Yeah.
Shook, as the kids say. I don't know what to say. I'm keeping it together. Wow, I'm not worried about like what he's gonna do past SNL, but I am very sad that he's leaving. I thought this was gonna be, my gosh, I thought this was gonna be his like biggest year yet on the show. So, Chris, what you doing? Yeah, I don't know. I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. I'm no lost for words.
Yeah. So look, this the thing is, like I said, I theorize that Chris Redd was not planning on leaving SNL. Obviously, something happened. It could be a very positive thing that happened. Like perhaps he was given some opportunity that he couldn't take back and decided to go in his own direction. Of course, we will give Chris Redd the opportunity if he'd ever like to address this on here as well. But I think this definitely changes the game of what we're looking at in season 48, because I have to maintain that Chris Redd was my MVP in season 47. I think he was primed to continue to break out and become a huge star on the show. And I'm certain he's going to continue to have an amazing career. But this is a big blow, in my opinion, to what was going to be happening in season 48. I think he was going to be a huge part of this coming season. So it sort of changes the dynamic for me and how I view some of the cast stuff, which I guess we'll be talking about a lot more next week. But wow, that was September 19th, 2022, when we found out that Chris Redd was leaving Saturday Night Live. Just a crazy moment. Unbelievable. So next up, I mean, Chris wasn't the only SNL cast member we got to talk to over the summer. There was probably another, one of the highlights of my SNL podcasting career, which was we were invited this summer to Just for Laughs 2022, where it was the 40th anniversary of Just for Laughs, and we were given red carpet access to interview some comedians there. And the awards show that night was hosted by former SNL cast member Jay Pharoah. Nicole Rovine flew up from New York City, so happy to get to hang out with her in person, and she was there as well. And I got to interview Jay Pharoah on the red carpet, and I want to show you that clip in case you missed it of our conversation with Jay Pharoah. And the real question I wanted to know was like, hey, Jay, you were sort of let go from the show. Like, is there hard feelings? Are you good? Like, would you ever come back and host? And we get the answer in this clip. So here, I'm going to take you back all the way to the end of July, where we spoke to Jay Pharoah on the SNL network. Enjoy. So 6 seasons at Saturday Night Live. I would love to know if there's ever a chance we're going to see you return to the SNL stage one day.
I mean, I hope so. You know what I mean? Like the facilitators over there say, you just have to have something coming out. And I do have a lot of things dropping, so hopefully I can get back over it. I would love to. I would definitely love to.
Yeah, that's the big question, because I always see you commenting on different sketches on Instagram. It seems like you're still involved with the show and you're interested in coming back. So we would love to see you host. The fans have been clamoring for it. You're interested?
I'm going to come back. I will make my return. And it will be a glorious return. And hopefully, when I make my return, the episode can get nominated for an Emmy. That's my goal. Didn't get one when I was on the show, but I plan to get one off the show when I come back. I'm an Eddie Murphy the situation. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I said it. All right, yeah.
Is there one impression that you wish you could have done on the show that you didn't get to do, and now that since like in the last few years, anything like that?
I don't even think about that. That didn't even cross my mind. I'm not like, oh man, I wish I could get a go at Biden. Nah, because I'm always doing it in my shows. So I'm always interchanging them. So never. Like I do wish that DeJuan got another chance to return though, character-wise. Oh hell yeah, that. Denny the Real, oh man, Principal Fry. Principal Fry had 6. He had 6 times up there. That's 1 a year, pretty good. Whatever.
Can you do a little Principal Fry for the camera?
I'll tell the teachers and students. There's a loose baboon out right now and he's very horny. He's had Viagra and a Red Bull, and he's ready to get somebody. So please, if you don't want the monkeypox, I would suggest you strap up and stay out of the house.
That was just the most surreal experience. I felt like the interviews were good. I feel like next year, if we go back to Just for Laughs in 2023, they're going to be even better. So I'm just excited. Like now that I had the red carpet experience, I think I know what to do now. So I feel better about that. But yeah, I'm so happy we got to hear from him. Hassan Minaj, we got to hear from. We got to speak to Taylor Tomlinson as well. A bunch of other comedians that were there. So, and then I got to, talk to Chris Redd and Punky Johnson, other, cast members that were there in Montreal for those weeks. And it was just like a really, really fun experience. I definitely encourage all of our listeners to head up to Just for Laughs in the middle of the summer if they would like to. So go ahead and do that if you can. And also, if you do want to go back to that full show that we did where we were talking about our experience at Just for Laughs and Nicole's time up in Montreal, that show came out on August 4th, 2022. July 18th, 2022, another fun summer show. I thought, it's the summer. Let's experiment, people. Let's get 2 of our most energetic, kind of crazy sometimes, panelists on the show. And what else but have them debate? So I thought it would be fun in the vein of some sports debate shows that you see out there. Let's have our own point counterpoint on the SNL network. And this time we had Andrew Dick and TJ Randolph get together to have some SNL debates. And this was probably our most watched, listened to show over the summer, where people just wanted to, get their midsummer fix from Andrew and TJ as they debated about different SNL topics. And one of the big things that people were talking about at the time, which is why I wanted to have this topic, was like, should SNL cast auditions be open to the public? Because there was this TikToker named Jake Novak who created a TikTok. It went viral with his audition. And I thought this would be really fun. So here's a clip of me playing this for Andrew and TJ and their debates, including myself. I gave my opinion too, of if SNL should open up cast auditions to the public from July 18th, 2022. This is a question that I've been talking about for a long time. I like to compare a little bit, reality TV sometimes to SNL because it is a reality show in a way. And, a lot of reality shows have public auditions. They let people go to casting calls and audition for that. And my question really was, is should SNL have some sort of open audition casting call? Because every July we hear about how the producers go out to different comedy festivals and start scouting and stuff like that. But it's always such a secretive process. It's like, who do you know and how do you get connected? Wouldn't it be great if the public could learn more? And something really hilarious happened in June, by the way, where a TikToker named Jake Novak had this viral TikTok that he made where he wanted to join the cast of SNL. TJ, you're gonna love this here.
I want to be the next SNL cast member, and here's why I should be a contender.
I feel so bad for this guy.
And I know that you're feeling the heat because your roster lost Kate, Kyle, 80, and Pete. That means you got an open seat, and I feel I ought to be feeling it because when it comes to comedy songs,
it's so thirsty. Oh my god!
All right. So my question is,
he's getting roasted for that video. Like he's getting flayed. Yeah. I can hear the grease sizzle. Like how badly he's being roasted.
I mean, never. It was so rare to see the entire internet stand up and say no to this one man. No. And I was like, oh my God, this poor man.
Looks like Mikey Day from Wish.
So we never really talked about this on the podcast very much, but this is pretty rare. I mean, like if you look up people's like Survivor or Big Brother auditions on YouTube, I mean, those things are up there. But looking at if someone's SNL audition on YouTube or TikTok, I mean, this is pretty rare that we get something like this where somebody just like puts something out there on the internet and says that they want to join the SNL cast. I think it was pretty interesting, regardless of how bad that was. But
it was
TJ,
a play. It was a play.
Yeah. So, anyways, but let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Should SNL open up public cast auditions? Should there be a way for the every man or every woman to audition for Saturday Night Live? You know, the story that we all want to hear: somebody going from a nobody or having no name to potentially being one of the biggest celebrities in the world. TJ, we'll start with you. Yes or no?
Okay. I'm gonna say no. But honestly, I'm like 51-49 on that. And here's why. That video did it for me. We live in an era where you have we live in an era where everyone has a chance to elevate themselves. If you're entertaining and if you catch like the right eye, you glow up. It's as simple as that. Now, granted, a lot of that is also based on like consistency, having decent content that people can actually come back to and whatnot. But I mean, the antithesis to that is that Bella Porsche got famous off of a lip syncing video and she made a couple of hits. But for the most part, if people like what you're doing, you're gonna elevate. And I need to be corrected on this because yes, I know they're connected to the SNL cast. Was PDD hired more because of their SNL connection or because they're like? Because I remember seeing them on TikTok beforehand, but I didn't know it was them until like middle of the season.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had seen plenty of their videos before they were hired. Same with James. I had seen a couple of those Trump videos. So they did have a little bit of, internet fire underneath them.
I mean, also, like, one of the heads of the show, it's Kid, and also
There's
Tim
also
Burley is
that.
Kid.
Yeah. Which I feel is kind of, I mean, they're.
But it's something I'm saying.
Not to say that they didn't earn it though. They were
absolutely earned it. They had it. It was easier for them, but they did earn it. Like they're funny.
They had an inline. So
yes. So okay. So I'm gonna say no because the world of celebrity is a lot more gray nowadays. It's not like it was in 2000s or whatever. They made it seem like on Entourage. Terrible show. It's not. It isn't this like glory thing. Sorry. Stardom and fame and talent, like that whole world is no longer just California. You can now blow up, largely because of the pandemic, but because of the internet also, you can blow up just being in your house and making funny videos. I feel like it should not be like America's Got Talent where it's like, all right, I'm going to go out and audition for SNL because honestly, I don't know if SNL has the patience to talk to every single American out there. Granted, we would all watch that reality show. Every single one of us would watch an SNL audition reality show.
I'd try.
I wouldn't try it. I would watch it. It'd be great entertainment. But I'm saying they shouldn't open. I would have said yes, they should have opened it up if this was like 2004. But because everyone now, even ourselves, like we're currently podcasting, like yes, we're enjoying talking about this, but we are putting ourselves out there. Little bits of performance or little bits of like podcasting and showing selves. We're living in an era where people do that just in their day to day. There is this blend of social media and performance and of branding. I don't know. Bo Burnham says it much better, but all I'm saying is the public already is sort of like at that same level of like entertainers trying to like glow up. The only difference is like PDD, one, they had an inline, but two, they also did have bits of popularity. The only thing people need nowadays is sorry. What I'm trying to say is that like it's a lot easier now to like get connected. All you really need to do is get popular, and if you are popular, somebody is going to notice you, and that somebody could be from SNL. So I feel like if you open it up to like asking, hey, does anyone want to audition? I think it'll oversaturate. It'll just kind of be a big time wasting process. I don't know if you'd get through everyone in a summer. So instead, like, let's keep it at the thing where people who do shine through, even in those little niche pockets, they are the ones that like get the chance. Cause like because they're not in the comedy clubs. That is the public for that audition pool to me, the people who get like viral content, except for that god awful. I want to be like that god awful video,
Okay. All right. Andrew, let's get in on this.
So I said yes, but it's in a very, again, with caveats to the whole idea. Because in a way, I mean, cast auditions are open up to the public.
That's what I'm saying.
Most of these people are not huge, and they are pulling from the talent pool of where these people are already going to put themselves to be good on SNL. I don't think just a random TikToker is going to be a great SNL cast member, because I don't think they've learned. They don't have the same qualities. Not that not to say everybody doesn't, but you're not going to have the same sort of stage presence or acting ability. You rarely interact with other people like in a sketch type of fashion. So, if you want to be on SNL, you're going to be putting yourselves, in a Second City or Groundlings type of situation anyway. But the thing that I've always found fun with, and I'm going to be old man Andrew again. There was a time in the very first couple of seasons where they would do just send us in your home movies, no more than 2 minutes, and we'll air them on the show as filler material. And you got to see some wondrous things. That's where Mr. Bill started.
Oh my God! Can you be my dungeon master? This is amazing.
Yes,
but
really cosplaying here
that
tonight.
is where Mr. Bill. That's where Mr. Bill started, and that did get Walter Williams a spot, on the show writing. And I've recently been rewatching season 3 of the show, where the first half of the season, the lead up to Christmas, is the Anyone Can Host contest, and it's super fun. And you get the old grandma, the 80-year-old lady who loved SNL, Miskell Spillman. She's the one who ended up hosting the Christmas episode. And I've been running it on the streams, and everybody's like, it would be pandemonium if they did this again, because it would just be, it'd be crazy, but it'd be awesome. Everybody would be talking about it. Like SNL, if they did it again, that's what I'm saying, is like SNL's done so many interesting things over the years that it somehow refuses to do again, even though it'd be awesome.
They had a billionaire host. They're doing interesting things all the time.
That is interesting in the absolute worst way.
You literally just used the word to negate my argument. It's still interesting. If Addison Rae hosted,
it was interesting on how much it tested my faith in the show.
You still said interesting. That's all that matters. It's still interesting.
I'm trying to make a joke out of this, DJ, because it really wasn't interesting. It was embarrassing. It was fucking embarrassing. So no, and you know what? That's what I'm saying. I don't want to see Elon Musk. I don't want to see Donald Trump hosting the show.
Well, that's the opposite of what I'm asking. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
That would be fun. That is fun and interesting.
You don't want to see like a successful person. You want to see the common man. You want to see what did not Haynes, Haskell in the never hosted draft, he picked himself to host his last episode. I still think I love that he did that, because it was such like a fun move to do. But like, yes, hell yeah, like let's see Andrew Haskell host SNL. Like, yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. I don't know, whatever.
And so you, like you just said, either you have the reality show aspect of it, and like each week they kind of gave you updates to what was happening. And then there was one episode with Buck Henry where you got to see the 5 finalists, and they all kind of had a little piece to do in the episode. And then finally it led to Miskell at the Christmas episode. And so you take that, and you take like Mr. Bill and the other home movies that they've aired over the years. I think that still happened up until like season 7 or something like that. And it's all fun and super charming, and kind of brings the show down to, yes, like a common man type of like, yeah, it's that feeling of the like, yeah, we're putting on a show, guys. Like it's less the glossy NBC network giant putting together this very, tightly ran, oiled machine, and it's more just like, man, this feels like me and my friends putting on a show. And hey, they ran our little home movie sketch that we did. Isn't that great? And so, yeah, I think the show just in a general fashion needs to kind of work under the whole idea of what if we opened it up to the general public in a fashion.
All right, we did it. That was just a wild show, and I'm so excited about Point Counterpoints, and I can't wait to do more of those. We did do another one, which is I have a clip from that coming up in just a little bit. But for now, let's turn our attention towards season 48 of Saturday Night Live. We made it all the way there, and we had some breaking news shows, including, some fun ones about the first hosts and getting to introduce the cast. SNL was able to send us the bios and pictures of the cast as soon as it dropped, so that was really fun. A great show if you want to go check that out. But on September 28th, 2022, we had our preseason draft. And in case you missed any of our draft podcasts, which we just had another one, but the drafts are really fun. We have the Superfan Takeover crew, and we have myself and TJ and Nicole and Rebecca North come on in, and we draft different stuff. We've done like a host draft, a never hosted draft. We just did the ultimate episode draft, which dropped last week. That was an amazing show. So in case you missed that over the holidays, but this time we decided we're going to draft this season's cast and play a fun game, which you could play along at home, where we drafted cast members. Each one of us got 2 cast members from this season, and you get 1 point for every appearance that the cast member makes in a sketch. So whether it's a voiceover or a regular appearance, and we obviously statistically track those appearances, so we're able to see which team is going to be the ultimate champion. And this was a great time with the draft crew, but ultimately there was a moment that stuck out from this preseason draft. And I'm not talking about Nicole putting herself first in the draft. I'm talking about Andrew Haynes deciding to pick Cecily Strong, which we all were like, who's going to, take the bomb? We didn't know where it was going to happen. And it was like on the second round of the draft, it came back to Haynes, and he's like, you know what, I'm going to do it. So here's that clip where he takes Cecily, and then let's talk about that right after. Let's head over to Haynes for the 10th overall pick and the second pick in the second round.
I can't believe this is still happening to me. I'm getting my second pick now, and honestly, after I had my pick and then Rebecca's going, I'm like, oh my gosh. First of all, listen, love Sarah. She is so awesome, and she crushed it last year. She's going to crush it. But I was thinking and I was like, man, Rebecca is going to get Chloe and Cecily. That's insane numbers, just numbers on numbers. So she's doing her thing in October. Yeah, she's got Schmigadoon, but like I said, last year she had Schmigadoon. She was still in 70 freaking sketches. I cannot believe that I have the opportunity to do this.
I was an underdog in this draft. I needed to choose underdogs too.
This is my moment. I am stacking with Cecily Strong here. So I really feel like I'm hooked up. I thought I was doing well with where my first pick landed, right in my lap. This is unbelievable. I feel really, really good about this season and the numbers that could come from my wee 2-person team. Thank you guys so much. This was so easy.
Yeah, so I sort of feel like I agree. I see in our private chat as well. I see that Haynes may have just won the draft. I think if everything goes correct here with Ego and Cecily, Haynes will probably take the whole thing. But this is a big but. We don't know if
Kardashian.
Yeah, we don't know if Cecily will be there that much. Last year, she did miss 4 episodes and finished 3rd overall in sketch appearances with 70. Obviously, if she's going to be there and she was there for the whole season, she would have been taken within the first couple picks, probably 2, 3, 4, something like that. But we don't know when she will be there or not. We don't know if she's going to take off again in January or what will be happening. Obviously, her without Kate McKinnon and A.D. Bryant is something we've never seen on the show. So there are a lot of question marks here. So even though it may seem like Haynes will win this, I still think there's intrigue. Bill, what do you think here of Haynes' pick?
I was wondering if she got to me, if I would take her. And here's my 2 issues with taking her. Any other time, if she, like you said, if she was going to be there the whole season, she'd already be long gone. But if her show is extended, she won't be back in November. She could be back Christmas. She could be back in January. And the other thing is, looking at the numbers from last year, Kate came back in December. And for all the complaining that certain people do about how much Kate is on the show and dominated the show, she was 15th in sketches by missing the first 7 or 8 shows. So going with that logic, I don't think I would have taken Cecily even when it got back to me. Any other time I would have said great pick, but I think have to take some caution with her this year.
So that was September 28th, 2022, where Haynes selected Cecily Strong as one of his cast members, knowing that she would be out for the first few episodes of the season. So then let's flash forward all the way to last week's show, where, you know, Cecily's obviously left the show. We're going to talk about that. And we do find out that she's gone. And what does that mean for the draft? And Haynes thinks he should get Colin Jost to replace Cecily on his team. And I was like, okay, I mean, like, whatever. Like, what's Colin's going to get you like another 12 points this season? Like, that's fine. But our panel, full of competitive people, they disagreed. And this was a really fun time where I basically said, okay, let's vote on it. Should Haynes get Colin? Check out what happens in last week's Superfan Takeover. Very interesting. So we have a little bit of a dilemma here because Cecily Strong left the show. So that means Haynes would only get points from Ego moving forward. However, Colin Jost was not drafted. So the big question is, does Haynes get Colin Jost from this point forward? So wouldn't get the extra, 10 points from Colin. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to vote on it, okay? So there's 7 people not named Haynes here. So you need 4 votes to move forward. Haynes, I'll let you make your case, and then we'll vote on it, okay? So Haynes, what do you think happened to your team?
Listen, it's not about my team. It's about the integrity of the game moving forward, right? And so what we want is competition, right? We don't want people dropping behind and not being able to compete coming down the stretch. We want a tight race. We want stuff going. We want to be going to overtime. We're taking it to the playoffs. For the benefit of the game, it's very important that we set a serious precedent here. And moving forward, if we have a mid-season departure, someone would be able to then pick up an undrafted cast member. It's important for the integrity of the game.
Okay.
Can I make the counterpoint?
What happens
wait.
next time a mid-season person leaves? Because
Let's do this
left.
in order. Wait, guys, I want to do this orderly just to make sure that the listeners can understand this. So yes, Haskell, you can make your point. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go around. You can make your point, and then you're going to vote. Okay? So Haskell, you want to make your point, and then you can vote, and then we'll go to Rebecca, then TJ, then Nicole, then Bill, then Sammy, then me. So Haskell, go first.
All right. I'm sitting in last place with Dismukes, who I drafted over Cecily because I said I think Cecily is going to leave midway through the season. That was part of the draft. So I'm a big old no, he does not get Colin Jost.
Okay, Rebecca, what is your vote?
You drafted Cecily knowing there was a chance she wasn't even going to be in the season. She wasn't even in the credits.
Whoa. You don't tell me what I did or why or what I was saying. Listen, you
had your time to speak, Haynes.
You can make an argument. You don't get to put words in my mouth.
Okay, Haynes,
But it
had your
was the
time to
general
speak.
knowledge that Cecily might not be in this season, and then you got lucky that she was and had a good few episode run, and then she's leaving. So no, I'm voting no.
I muted Haynes, so he doesn't have an opportunity to for now. So
Voting no.
So okay,
Voting reality at the 10.
TJ, what's your vote?
Hell no! Are you kidding me? That also, if your argument was better, I would have gone for it. But absolutely, mother trucking not. No, I'm saying no because you made your choice, and that's what it is. Also, to be fair though, Colin wouldn't be that much of a boost to him. But my answer is no. To be fair, I will say this: my answer, just to be nice, my answer is out of wanting everyone else but me to lose. Just so you guys know where I'm coming from.
Okay. All right. Nicole, I think I know what your answer is, and this will probably seal it, but yes or no, should Haynes get Colin?
First of all, I should clarify, when I say I'm regretting my choice, I'm regretting my choice to place myself first because it was a 2-round draft. So I just want to make that clear if anyone's listening for the first time. I do not regret who I chose first. I regret placing myself as first. Anyways, this is actually, even if I were in the lead, even if whatever, like, it's not just because I'm trailing behind. It's the integrity of the game. You made your decisions. People made decisions. People chose other people over Cecily, knowing, we had a lot of information about Cecily, like what has been said. This was not certain for her. It's not ever certain for anyone. And again, if you just get Colin Jost, what happens if someone, breaks their ankle, and an ankle injury leaves them on the sidelines. You know, it's not sports, but it's close to sports. So a broken ankle for the end of the season. I mean, what would they do? They don't have a Colin Jost left if you take a Colin Jost. So it's a humongous, tremendous no for me. I mean,
all right, just for it is going to be a no, but just for fun, Bill, what was your answer?
Well, now I could say yes, and Haynes won't be mad. Like, why would I? No, I Nicole's points are true. Like that would be my biggest concern. Not that we would, you know, if you're playing fantasy football, somebody goes on the IR, you pick somebody up. But
exactly,
if somebody leaves, if somebody else leaves in January or February, then what are we going to do? Are we going to split Jost in half? Like that would be. So that would be the reason I'd say no. Sorry, Haynes.
All right, Sammy.
Yeah, honestly, you know, I think in our group text, I was the one that kind of brought this question up when we were, you know, in the frenzy of like, oh my God, Cecily's leaving. Like, what does this mean for the draft? Blah, blah, blah. And I was kind of leaning towards the idea of Haynes picking up Colin because, you know, as John mentioned, I don't do drafts. I'm not the most competitive kind of person. But after hearing all these arguments, Haynes, I'm sorry, man, but my vote would also be to kind of say screw you, and you're not able to pick up.
Oh, Jesus Christ, guys!
Wait, John, I have a question.
And I've spoken my point.
John, I have a question.
Yes, TJ. Yes.
It honestly feels like just these first like 15 minutes is just like draft update, and feels like I don't know. Are you going to release this as a piece by itself?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, no. We're releasing this as part of the podcast. But yes, for what it's worth, Haynes, I would have said yes because I'm your only friend here. So I would.
No, you don't get credit for going at the end. No.
Poor Haynes. Oh, yeah. Okay, so that was from December 26, 2022, where Haynes just got roasted. And yeah, good luck, man. No Cecily, just one cast member moving forward. So we'll see what happens with Haynes' team and the rest of the draft throughout the season. I didn't even get to say before, by the way, but we had some other really fun shows over the summer where we did count down the greatest SNL characters of all time. That was a patron podcast series, which again, we'll do that probably over the summer with another series we'll count down with our patrons. We had an Emmy watch party as well. So those were some really fun things before season 48. But now let's get into some season 48 coverage. And there's a few clips I want to play for all of you. Let's start with our Miles Teller hot take show. Of course, Miles hosting the SNL premiere, which is always an exciting spot. But the way SNL opened up season 48, we had no idea what we were going to get. So many cast members were gone. And they open up with this Manning cast cold open, which to me was one of the best cold opens I have seen in years. So much fun, very meta, talking about really just Manning casting, watching SNL. And it's really a reference to all of you, all of us who listen to podcasts. It was just so cool. So here is our hot take show from October 1st, 2022, where I was there with Andrew Haskell, Nicole Rovine, and Kalina Steckel to break down this cold open and the premiere of SNL season 48. Basically, the Manning cast is something that you get to see on ESPN2 during Monday Night Football in real life, where Eli and Peyton Manning, former NFL quarterbacks, former Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, host this basically talk show while football games are airing, and they bring on different guests every quarter. Well, this time they're talking about the season premiere of Saturday Night Live, and we get all the typical tropes that you would expect. JJ as Trump, Chloe as a Trump lawyer. We get Michael Longfellow leading in Heidi Gardner, and the one time we might see him tonight, which was not true, actually. Would have preferred that to be more meta. But we get Heidi coming in as a governor of South Dakota. Mikey is Don Jr. Bowen is the president of China. Sarah is creeping into the sketch. Of course, we get Jon Hamm in this cold open, three-time host. Jon Hamm was originally not in the cold open in dress rehearsal. He was in the monologue. He was then moved to the cold open for the live show. Shaun White made an appearance in this one as well, was originally played by Ben Marshall in the in dress rehearsal. And then we also had Devin Walker as the corn kid, of course, very popular on TikTok now, and Molly and Marcello doing the gritty. So lots of elements here. Would love to talk about all the meta aspects. Really feel like this was sort of made for us to break down. So let's break down the breakdown of the cold open. Haskell, what do you think?
Well, first, was it made for... Of course it was made for us. They started talking about SNL stats, like throwback for us. That was awesome. But there is a lot to unpack, like in a really good way. And I've said this on the podcast countless times that I don't like basket cold opens that are like, let's just pull out everything we can from the week and talk about it. But Obviously, that's different during the premiere because you have to talk about what happened during the summer. So I cut them some slack there, but I also think they did it in the way that I like it, which is it's still all framed in the same way without just being like a news broadcast that's jumping around. So that like what a great way to start off the night with that super meta, super kind of buzzworthy cold open. I love because we're so used to those of us who watch it every single week, like the second somebody comes on camera, we know who it is. And it did take me a second to say, who do they have playing Peyton Manning? And then when you realize it's Miles Teller, like he looks exactly like him in that. Like that was one of the better makeup jobs, I guess. Like, or it's so natural. So that was great. And then kind of my line of that sketch was when he refers to Jon Hamm as a regular host during what now seems like a golden era of the show for like people my age who grew up during that era. Like, of course, it's like a great, like for me, it's like, yes, it was a golden era, but it was a really funny line to kind of throw it in there. That's like, yeah, now it seems like a golden era.
Well, the best part about the whole thing was like every single time anybody asks, like, which is one host that you wish could come back that hasn't come back yet, it's Jon Hamm. Like that's like the number one choice. So all that, like obviously there's the Jon Hamm and Miles Teller connection from Top Gun, but like beyond that, it just fit so smoothly. This was probably one of the best cold opens that we've seen in years. So like for me, the fact that it slated on the premiere was amazing. Nicole, what do you think of the cold open?
Yeah, I mean, I think it felt really ambitious and it succeeded in the attempt to make the cold open so like designed for people like us instead of just people who don't watch SNL all the time. You know, I feel like what I was expecting was more so to lean into like, you know, all the things that we've been missing out on and to like go more deep into those news stories, you know, rather than like do just talking about the show. Like anything that we talked about with Trump, it wasn't really about Trump. It was so meta and it was about the show. It was about SNL. And I think that like that was a really cool thing to do because I would expect that the main goal would be to try to like get people in who are just not so tapped into this like meta culture around it, like how we analyze that's probably the last time you're going to see him, you know, tonight. And all of us are going like, you know, statistically, yeah, it is probably. And then we were, you know, that wasn't true. But I just think it was cool to be like, it felt like fan service. And I appreciate that. I think I'm in the camp that the more meta, the better, and the more self-aware and the more we're like laughing at things that the deepest cut type of audience, the more that we are catered to, obviously, you know, the better we feel about it. But I'm curious how they're going to weave that in throughout the season, because I do think it's important to balance, you know, what we like with what people like who are just going to tune in on a random Saturday, or if they're not usually watching the show and they're with a friend that weekend who does watch the show. You know, how are you going to loop someone like that in? To me, that's also important to balance. So as much as I love when the show is catered just to me, I also do hope to see some ways to balance it a little bit more, so it's for people who really want those in jokes, and for people who couldn't care less about the in jokes, because I think that those people also, there's room for them to also understand, 90% of the jokes, the way that people who really watch SNL understood 100% of the jokes.
Yeah, totally. Kalina, I would love to get your thoughts on the cold open as well.
Yeah, so I think kind of going off your point a little bit, as soon as the cold open started and I kind of realized what it was going to be, my first thought was like, oh my God, this is so designed for me. This is not only my type of humor, but this is a great reflection of like how I feel about the show and what I care about. But I also started thinking of, like 5 random people that don't really watch SNL or that make fun of me for being as obsessed with SNL as I am. And I'm like, oh, they would also find this funny. And so I think you're exactly right, Nicole, that this was like a great way to kind of achieve the balance for both audiences. And I was genuinely impressed because I feel like the departure of the amount of cast members we had, and specifically some of, the anchors, people like 80, people like Kate, it was going to be an elephant in the room that they knew they had to address in some way. And frankly, I was really curious how they were going to do it, and if it was going to be done in a way that was going to satisfy me as a dedicated and longtime viewer. So I was so excited when it became meta like this. I never become a happier human being than when Jon Hamm unexpectedly appears in something, whether it's a movie or a commercial. I think there was literally like a State Farm commercial that he appeared in, at some point. I was like, oh, Jon Hamm. Oh, Jon Hamm just keeps showing up in things. That's always strong for me. I actually put in my notes, potentially might be one of my favorite cold opens of all time. I mean, I was happy, I was laughing, I was excited. It made me kind of even that much more geared up for like the rest of the episode and the rest of the season. I'm also just generally a big sucker for fourth wall breaks. And then Peyton Manning is also one of my favorite hosts, or at least one of my favorite athletic hosts. And so I always kind of love the tie-in, and it makes me reminiscent of when he's been on the show before. So honestly, 10 out of 10 sketch for me. That's kind of my perfect SNL sketch.
Jon just looked like he was about to tear up when you said.
Yeah, it's my favorite episode of SNL. I do love that you said that. And look, if there's anything that this cold open shows, besides the fact that it was funny, it was pretty well written, like it was a good cold open, it sort of shows to the casual SNL fan that's tuning in for the premiere, hey, maybe I'll check out the premiere of SNL and see what it's like. It actually makes you feel like SNL is a show that is not meant to just be watched on that evening. It's a show that exists like beyond that current episode. There's a world of SNL, there's world building, there's character development that happens in real life between these cast members. It's a beautiful thing that's done for the show that's lasted for 48 years. So I loved every minute of this. Yeah, that was fun. I mean, the premiere was okay. I mean, I don't know that anybody would say that was like the best episode of the season, but it was fun. And the cold open, I would say, is still probably my favorite cold open of the entire season. So that was really cool. And thanks to everybody for joining us again for the beginning of season 48. But then next week, Brendan Gleeson came in to host the show. Who is Brendan Gleeson? A lot of people didn't know, but it was really fun to have him there. And I was just so excited to get this panel together where we had Andrew Dick and Bill Kenny with us for the Hot Take Show, some SNL veterans as they were watching this episode, and very pumped to get to talk about Brendan Gleeson that night. But little did we know, all the talk that night was going to be about the Try Guys. Who are the Try Guys? Well, you better know them at this point, because if you don't, you're just going to be made fun of, I guess. And, I would say this was the most interesting week where we had this Try Guys sketch on the Gleeson episode. And, we pulled a clip, posted it on YouTube, and the amount of views and comments and, interactions about the Try Guys that week, it was all about them that week and Ned, cheating and everything like that. So here's a look back at a brief discussion of the Try Guys sketch from the Brendan Gleeson episode, October 8th, 2022. So let's head over to CNN, where Ego Wodem is our host, and we have Brendan Gleeson, who is a field reporter who's supposed to be talking about Biden, but instead we get to talk to the Try Guys. And last week when we did that game show sketch about Send Something Normal, I was like, I'm surprised there was no Try Guys talk in there. Obviously, it came together for this one where we had Mikey, Bowen, and Andrew as the Try Guys. No one playing Ned for this one, but this felt like something that SNL was going to address. It seems like the typical type of pop culture story that they would find a way to pinpoint on at some point. And I'll start off here. I'm going to say Brendan Gleeson completely made this for me. The fact that he was so on board with the keep going back to talk about the Try Guys. To me, this is one of those sketches that the writing was good. Brendan Gleeson was fantastic in this one. Bill, how are you feeling about the CNN sketch?
100% on Brendan. Why are we doing this? Nobody's going to know who these guys are. This is the Balloon Boy sketch of 2022. Really, who cares about these guys? I understand it's all over social media.
I think that's also the point of it.
I know, and the meta-ness of, why do we care about these guys? I like that part of it, but Jesus, what are we doing here? And leading off the night with this, it just did not work for me at all. Ego trying to redirect it to serious news was really fun. But the rest of it, and I like the fact that the three Try Guys were wearing the same exact outfits that was in the video earlier in the week. So that was a nice touch.
Also, then the cut back to me, please.
Yes.
Yeah, we did. I just want to give credit to our social media team tonight, headed by Nicole, and some great people who work with us on social media. Posted a picture of a side by side, so you can see the Try Guys video and the three of them from SNL tonight. If you want to take a look at our social media at the SNL Network. So, Andrew, how did you feel about the sketch?
I love this. As you said, Brandon is the one that really kind of carries the audacity of this sketch, because before this whole thing happened, and like when it happened and I was on Twitter and I was like, boy, Twitter really wants me to know who the Try Guys are. And I still don't care, but I feel like this sketch is for me. I am vaguely aware of everything that is happening because I am on social media. And so I do see this nonsense. But the whole thing of just, the Brendan just incomprehensibly so wrapped up in it. And I'm actually kind of sad that they kind of got away from his character once we got into Andrew and Mikey and Bowen as the Try Guys, because again, I think he was really selling the energy of the sketch. And I think it just came together for me. Like, I think it was a sketch that I would have written about from my perspective on this whole thing. So, overall, I was like, okay, suddenly a solid win on the Try Guys sketch. Huh. And the food baby and the Try Guys, like the wordplay was really nice. I liked it all.
My problem with it is, and we saw last week, the Be Real sketch. Like, okay, do it smart. And I don't think this was smart. I think that's the problem I had with it. I don't care that you're covering pop culture. That's part of SNL's job. But do it smarter than this. This was just kind of a shot for shot and nothing really brought to the table other than Brendan being really funny as the White House reporter.
Yeah, but Brendan being funny, I think, is what makes this so great, because for me, it's like you have to look at the situation. And yeah, there's a lot of angles that they can cover this, but I think it goes back to the range of reactions that everyone has had towards this scandal, from like being absolutely enthralled by it to not giving a shit about it. And I think that what we have here is a 67-year-old Irishman who could not be further removed from the Try Guys situation, absolutely loving them like he is a Paul Rudd One Direction fan. And that, to me, is what makes this so great. It's his like utter enthusiasm to want to talk about the Try Guys. And I think, like, if you didn't like it, give it a second chance, because I really feel like his enthusiasm in this.
And the fact that like Ego simply cannot move on either.
Yes.
Like the fact that it persists, is like, I don't know. I felt it really all worked.
All right, that's it. No more Try Guys talk. We did it. We that was part of the year, but we had our fun with the Try Guys. And then Megan Thee Stallion comes in for the following week. Did a pretty good job. I mean, probably, nothing too crazy to talk about here, but it was a fun episode to cover. Really just felt like Megan's episode of the show, and really wrote the show in her voice. And then October 31st, 2022, let's flash forward to Halloween. Yes, October 29th was the Jack Harlow episode of SNL, but I want to take you to our roundtable that week where we podcasted on Halloween night. I was with SNL by the numbers Mike Murray, Victoria Franzo, who's so fantastic, and Sean Grant as well on the show. And they were all dressed up in costumes, getting ready to talk about the Jack Harlow episode, but specifically maybe the moment of the season, one of the best moments from the beginning of season 48, was Bobby Moynihan finally returning to SNL for the first time since the end of 2017. And he comes back for Drunk Uncle, David S. Pumpkins, but really Drunk Uncle was just so good. Still thinking about it. It was so great. And we were discussing that. So here's a look back at our discussion of the return of Drunk Uncle from the Jack Harlow episode of SNL.
Of course, I'm going to talk about the one and only Drunk Uncle. Drunk Uncle is a beloved character, an iconic character. I think Drunk Uncle certainly foreshadowed today's political atmosphere with the type of conspiracy theories and complaints he spouts that we also unfortunately hear in real life on Facebook and other social platforms. And while like Drunk Uncle seems like a caricature of an uncle, he sometimes hits too close to home, at least for me. And I think the best part of this character is that every line is funny. right? Though it's out there and exaggerated, whatever, it's never, in my opinion, overdone. I think it suits who Drunk Uncle is, and he always gives some backstory to his character. And so while he's silly, this is a character that does a better job of showcasing exactly who they are. So you can picture Drunk Uncle outside of the show, at home, at the bar, at the dinner table, surfing through like weird outlets online, anywhere. And the SNL writers are smart, and Bobby Moynihan is incredibly talented, which, by the way, John, I loved your tweet on Bobby Moynihan from, I think, Saturday night. Like, all-time favorite tweet. I might print it out and frame it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, John was real recognized real, and that's what John was doing. Mentioned that he's underrated, his characters, and as you specifically mentioned, like he blended eras together like no other. And I kid you not, I hold Bobby Moynihan as one of my like absolute favorite cast members of all time. So, and there were a few examples I wanted to call out that were great pop culture and news mentions in his line. Like, this is Halloween, Marjorie Taylor Greene. That was funny. Speaking to like PC culture as always, Hallows Eve, you have to call it Hallows Steve, in Drunk Uncle fashion, saying, I think it was, Tom is too good for Michelle. And then last but certainly not least, my favorite was, everybody's quiet quitting. I quit. So
yes, that was great. Yeah, thank you. I believe in that tweet, I did call him an all-time great and said he's the most underrated cast member of all time. And I mean that. I do think he is. I think he's it's about time that we start referring to him as one of the legends of the show. And I think this is well-deserved. Like I said on Saturday, I think this is a precursor to him hosting. But I want to talk about this Drunk Uncle character and get your thoughts, Sean and Mike, as well, because 14th time that we had Drunk Uncle on the show. The last time we saw him was season 42. The world was a little bit different in season 42. I think, 6 years ago, this was obviously pre-COVID, a lot of the Trump stuff that we ended up seeing. And, I think SNL over the last few years has covered versions of Drunk Uncle. Like, I think in particular, like pre-tapes where people are sitting at like Thanksgiving dinner tables and they're having to listen to their relatives talk about things similar to the way that Drunk Uncle would do it. But there's something about Bobby Moynihan as Drunk Uncle, and it's probably a testament to who he is as a cast member beyond just the character. That's sort of like when your puppy like gets into the garbage, you're like, oh, like he's so full of like, he has like shit all over him, but I can't get mad at him because he's my puppy. Like, it's like the stuff he's talking about is so ridiculous, but he's your dog. It's like you can't get mad at him like that. Sean, you see what I'm saying?
For sure, brother. I know exactly. Like he's towing some line, man, that you're like, only he can do it so gracefully. And they tell you in improv to not play drunk characters, these certain things, because they're so sporadic. Their information's not reliable. Things like that. But I think that character is so solid because the writing within it, you can tell that you feel like that tension being built when he sounds like he's about to hit on something, but it's not that. You know what I mean? Like, obviously the Steve or whatever, that's what people say when they're being, I don't know, misogynist or homophobic or something like that in the Adam and Steve, whatever. But the way he says he's so drunk, you're like, I think his mind is somewhere there, but the words coming out of his mouth is all we're holding him accountable for. It's such crispy writing with such a sporadic character, and it really requires a lot of skill to merge those two things and make them work together. And I think he does that amazingly.
For sure. Mike, I think any other character says,
well, yeah, I was there on January 6th.
What? You'd be like, but So, Mike, how did you feel about getting the return of Drunk Uncle and Bobby on the show?
Loved every second of it. I was thinking about Drunk Uncle a lot, and why it's funny and why it's had staying power even after all these years. And I was thinking of update characters, and typically why they work is they sit down and they do the same beats. And you know the jokes, you know what to expect. You still laugh. Garth and Kat, like Victoria's dressed as tonight. We have Stefan, or even the trend forecasters last season, that they're literally doing the same script with new jokes. And so Bobby does that with Drunk Uncle, but it's kind of a 3-act play. Like, he really
comes out with like some anger and machismo, and then he kind of like will just break the whole thing down in the middle with obviously a lot of pop culture references. He always sings, and then he literally breaks down crying. So he has this vulnerability to that character that just like I think it just transcends all these things we're talking about as far as the actual references themselves. I think to this day I still quote him by saying like Spotify me, and do you have a Groupon, and these type of things that just stay with me from Drunk Uncle. But I think that's really the strength of the character, but also the strength of Bobby Moynihan. Like you said, he does transcend as well the eras of the show, and just that idea of he's gonna start crying at the end and have like a realization about his life or something like that, but it still hits because it's like real. There's a rawness about it, and he brings humanity to like a really ridiculous character that you said.
You be real.
Yeah, you be
Sorry,
real.
you said real. I had to. You triggered me.
No, I love it. Keep him coming. But yeah, that's really my opinion on Drunk Uncle, and I was like, how have we not had him yet? But I was happy. It was a perfect timing. So good to see him back.
For sure. And Mike referred to it earlier. This has to be the line of the episode. And if you missed it, here's where you can catch this.
That kind of talk doesn't fly anymore, Seth.
And I think I don't know if that was planned or not, but I have to ask Wally, who I think I can ask if that was on the cue card or not, because totally looked like it threw off Colin. And I think you hear Che laughing in the background as well. It was so fantastic. Yeah. So that was the big question, right? Was like, did he mean to say Seth? And who are we going to talk to? How are we going to figure that out? How did that all come together with Bobby and Tom Hanks and Mikey and getting all the David S. Pumpkin stuff back together? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can't believe it, but we got Bobby Moynihan on the podcast with us in 2022. And that was just, I was so proud of, that interview that we did with him. I think it's the best interview we've ever done. Like just, the interactions and just the questions and his thoughtfulness. I would have Bobby on the show time and time again, as much as we can get him, because he's so amazing. So thanks to Bobby and his team for making that whole thing happen. But let's flash forward to December 18th, 2022, when we got to ask Bobby Moynihan about how this all came together and did he mean to say Seth. So season 48, episode 4, we get this huge surprise for Halloween where we get to see you return to Saturday Night Live on the Jack Harlow episode. And you come in, we get to see Drunk Uncle again, one of your most beloved characters, and of course, David S. Pumpkin. So Bobby, would love to know how this all came together and how it felt to come back to SNL after a few years of being away.
It was crazy, man. It was nuts. How did that come about? I was sitting at home. My wife had just gone to the emergency room. Everything's okay. But like I was in a different headspace. My wife was in the emergency room and I got a text from Mikey Day that said, Tom Hanks is in town and wants to do David Pumpkins. Are you around? And my immediate thought was, I don't have time for this. My immediate thought was like, oh no. And then it just became a show week. I was just transported back to 5 years ago, and a switch flipped on that hasn't been flipped in many years. And that was the last I heard of it. I said, sure, I'm around. And then in very much SNL fashion, I assumed it was going to get cut. And I didn't hear anything at all. And then I just got flight information on Thursday. And the next thing I knew, I was flying in and I said, well, I'm on Friday. I was like, well, I'm going to be in town. I'm going to be there. You want to do a Drunk Uncle maybe or something? And didn't really hear anything about it. And then Saturday morning, it was like, yeah, why don't we do a Drunk Uncle? So Saturday morning at 10 a.m. in the hotel, started writing, went to SNL at 2. With the update writers for an hour, wrote some more jokes, and then did it on live television and went home.
Wow,
nuts! Yeah, it was very weird to not do that for 5 years and then all of a sudden be back in the studio doing quick changes. It was not lost on me. It was quite an experience. Yeah.
A lot of people say it's like going back to your old high school and everything just like, it's weird and you have these weird memories. Is that how you felt when you walked in?
Well, yeah, but it was like going back to your high school and no one from your high school goes there anymore. Like Kenan and Cecily are still there, but like those are the only people, like, across the board, everybody was brand new. So it's very odd to like spend most of the rehearsal talking to Tom Hanks because he's the only person you know. Like that was a little weird. And like even Tom Hanks was like, I don't know anybody here. And like you're just like, yeah, it's crazy. And like it was nuts. I kept saying like the day you get SNL is the day you start wondering when you'll host. Like it just happens. Like it's like you got SNL, and then it's like, oh, well, I wonder if I'll ever host. Like it's just the next logical step for a weird cast member. And like once the show ended, like I always thought you always go, when are they? I wonder if they'll ever call. I wonder if they still remember me or they still need me. And there's that part of you that always wonders. And then couple months ago during the pandemic, I got a phone call that was like right before the election. They were doing some Joe Biden bit and they were like, we want to do a drunk uncle thing for it. And I remember thinking, I can't do this. It's in the middle of the pandemic. I got a 5-year-old daughter. I don't want to get on a plane right now, but my heart is filled because I'm just really glad they asked me to come back. And then I was upset and then of course it got cut and it didn't happen. And then I went, oh, well, at least they asked. And then this one happened and it was the best. And I thank Tom Hanks for it because it wouldn't have happened without him.
Okay. So Bobby, I pulled this line from October. We have a question about this.
That kind of talk doesn't fly anymore, Seth.
Yeah.
Did you do that? Was that on purpose, or was that an accident? You said Seth instead of Colin.
Funny. I have called him Seth. I have called like the first time I did it with Colin, I called him Seth on purpose. It was written in as a joke. I think I also called him Tina later on.
Okay,
but this one, it was not in there. And if you go back and you listen, okay. This is weird. I have a thing with Kenan where I don't call him Kenan. I call him Creenan. I call him Creenan Thompson. It's just a weird, I don't know why, just some weird little thing. But I call him Creenan. And I had just seen him backstage and I was like, oh, Creenan. And I was joking around and I was feeling loose. And if you listen, right before I call him Seth, I accidentally call him Karen. And I think in my mind, I was trying to call him Crawlin, like I do Kenan, but I just screwed it up. And I was just thinking about something else. And then the next thing I knew, I hear people laughing and I see Colin laughing and I'm like, what did I do? I had no idea what happened. The sketch ended and they were like, well, you called him Seth. And I was like, I did what? I had been watching old drunk uncles. I hadn't seen them in a while and it was just in my brain and I just called him Seth by accident that time. But so yes, it was an accident. It was a complete accident. But because I had just called him Karen by accident and I was literally thinking about how I stumbled on my word and then the Seth just came out of my mouth. And you can see it. I had no idea. I was just like, I called him Seth because I'm so used to yelling at Seth as drunk uncle.
Bobby, I mean, you can't find a more universally beloved cast member in the history of SNL. Just everybody loves Bobby, his time on the show, and just that interview. There's so many stories he told. We really fit a lot into an hour. So if you want to go back and listen to the Bobby Moynihan episode from December 18th, definitely encourage you to check that out. And also Sammy K and James Stevens on that show were so great. So really great to get to talk to them. But that wasn't the only really cool SNL stories we've done. Obviously, we've shown you Keith earlier in the show and now Bobby. But there was another one I think that you should definitely check out if you missed it. This was from the end of November 23rd, 2022, when we spoke to former SNL cast member, former SNL band member, and former SNL host Paul Shaffer about his time at the show. It was just really cool to get to talk to him. We also had Tom Bones Malone, who we've also had on the show as well. And we got to hear about their time at SNL. This is a great moment with the great and legendary Paul Shaffer. You know, you're not only known for your time in the SNL band and working with Bill, but also a lot of people
may remember that you were actually a cast member on Saturday Night Live in season 5 of the show. Is that something that you wanted to do at the time? Did you enjoy it? I mean, that's pretty special that you are one of the cast members.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was not a full-fledged cast member. I was what
You're
they call a featured player, yeah. So kind of a supporting actor. You're going to be in, so many out of the 22 or whatever, 13, however. And yes, I was dying to get on camera, sneaking on however I could. And so, when that came up, I loved to do it. I really only had one character, Don Kirshner, the rock promoter. Thank you for remembering. And so I used to basically do Don Kirshner no matter what the character was. I just do the same voice. But yeah, a lot of fun, very, very, very much fun. One time, Harry Shearer wrote me into a sketch where he was playing, Carl Sagan in a parody of a show that was out at the time, Pink Lady, and I was playing Marvin Hamlish, but I was having such a good time on live TV with my friend that I started improvising as Hamlish and laughing kind of as Hamlish and laughing over his lines. A big no-no, a terrible no-no that I learned my lesson. I don't think he's forgiven me yet, but I certainly learned my lesson.
Well, Paul, in addition to some of those, I guess that's also a band apart, right? I'm thinking of the Medieval Band and the, you know what I'm going to say next, right? Flogging.
Yeah, again, a time when I got into trouble. This is, Franken and Davis were two writers, and they came up with this idea to take there was an inside show business tape of the rock band, the Trogs, trying to follow up their hit Wild Thing in the studio, but all they could do was profanities and say the F word. They didn't know any musical terms. All they knew was the F word. Franken and Davis took it, and instead of the Trogs, they transposed it into medieval times. Tom, I think you were in that one too. I know James Taylor was in it anyway. And we made up our own word. We couldn't use the F word, so we say flogging. Flogging this, flogging that. And it got big laughs in rehearsal. And Franken said, before the air show, he said, you were doing so well. If you want to add a few extra floggings, go ahead. So it was really, thinking about that, I just got a little too loose and I said the actual F word, making history. And that's what Lorraine Newman, the first person to speak to me after it went down. I was in shock. Oh my God, my career is over. So Lorraine Newman says, I'm white as a sheet. She comes over to me and says, well, thank you for making broadcasting history. And I just, oh my God. And then Lauren, the producer, came up and he said, well, you just broke down the last barrier. He was not upset because it was obvious that it was a legitimate mistake. And I think the bad English accents we were doing, nobody really noticed anyway.
Yeah, let alone on the 100th episode of the show, which was a monumental mark for the show. So it was pretty funny that happened then.
Oh, I didn't even realize that, but now that you mentioned it, I remember, yeah.
Yeah. Paul, can I also ask you, you're asked to host Saturday Night Live, I believe it was in 1987, and you come back and you are the host of the show. What was that experience like, especially being with all of these new cast members, or you have, Dana Carvey and Phil Hartman, Jan Hooks, like all these legends eventually of the show and like all in sort of their infancy. How was that for you?
It was fantastic. I mean, it was a dream come true. I went from writing special musical material to hosting it. It really was wonderful. I think the Letterman show was super hot at the time, and so I got to do it. Lauren came back after some absence, and maybe it was, I don't know, whatever it was, the timing was right for me to do it. And yeah, I was like an old pro compared to these new, young, nervous kids. But I ended with some special material, which in itself, Tom, it's funny you mentioned it. That's such an anachronism. Nobody knows what it means anymore. And Carol Burnett, Carol Burnett used to say special material, the guy who wrote these special little songs. I didn't want to use that because I thought it was too Carol Burnett, And so I made up a funny title. I used to have my credit used to say musical stylings. until my
Musical
mother said
stylings.
it. Yeah, my mother said it sounds like you're doing their hair. So I just went back to special musical material. Wonderful. So I sang at the end of the song, 1975, it was a very good year.
A very good year.
It was a very good year for something to, and brothers, Czech and blues, referring to the Czech brothers and the blues brothers. Billy did the news. Belushi's chauffeur would drive, because they all got limos, Well, in 1975. It was. Thanks for asking about that, though.
And thank you to Paul Shaffer and Bones for coming on the show. They were just so awesome to get to hear from them and all of our SNL Stories guests that we've had this season, this year. It was just really a great year, and I encourage everybody to check them out. Excited to see who we're going to get on the show in 2023. No comments yet. We'll see what happens there. Okay. Earlier in the show, we had Counterpoint 1. That was in July. Now, at the end of November, we had Counterpoint 2. I don't know why I do this to myself, but I figured let's just do it all over again. Let's see what happens with TJ and Andrew Dick. And TJ, I think he was just moving he tried to be as prepared for the show as possible, but I like it when TJ sort of comes off the cuff a little bit. And he was really off the cuff with this one, where I sort of asked the two panelists, I said, Andrew, TJ, is season 48 been a good season so far? This was pre-December. So I said, has SNL S48 been a good season? And listen to TJ's answer, which goes downhill. Has season 48 of Saturday Night Live been a good season? As simple as that. Has it been a good season of the show? Okay. For this one, I'd like to start with TJ. Okay. TJ, can you start and tell us, has season 48 been a good season?
All right. Just so I can also understand the format, just to make sure. If one of us argues one point, the other has to argue the opposite, even if we don't stand by. No?
No.
Well, what's the point of agreeing? It's a point counterpoint.
No, well, look, I know that the two of you have such strong opinions that I want to keep it genuine. So if you guys agree on something, that's fine. We'll find the points of disagreement in your arguments, because I think that's natural. It's going to naturally happen between the two of you.
Yeah.
So if you both feel it's a good season, that's fine. But I know that's not the way you both feel. So let's go and let's get through it. Okay, TJ, starting with you.
Jonathan, the season has been the state of the. If we're to do a state of the season of SNL, the state of the season is good. We have been. Look, as some of my homies who might sometimes eat too much dairy, or maybe their body's just doing some things. Sometimes we just get a little bloated, and that's what SNL was feeling these past couple of seasons. Even though we had people we loved, Melissa Villasenor, Kate McKinnon, people who are very talented, they had to go. And I'm not exactly happy about it. That's a lie. I was dancing. Pete Davidson was already half out. We had so much bloatedness, and you know what we needed to do? We needed to take an antacid. We needed to handle our business, and then we needed to go about the rest of our day, because you can't stay in the bathroom when you have to work for the other half of the day. You just can't do these things. So
off to an incredible start.
I'm really just pulling this out of my ass. I don't know. But I think it has been a fantastic season. Look, I think it's been a fantastic season. The analogy is basically that SNL is like you when you had too big of a lunch, but you're in the middle of your workday, and so your whole workday is paused because you're oh shoot, you got. I don't want to get gross, but you have to handle your business basically, but you still have the rest of the workday. So now that everything is taken care of, basically, you can now start afresh. You have a new boom of motivation to work. This analogy is not perfect, listener.
So you're saying season 47 was a giant dump after
No, I'm
Gut?
saying season 47 is you having finished a good meal, but you're a little too full. And season 48 is you with your second wind and you feeling lighter.
Do I regret doing the show already?
Yeah, it's anyways, so yes, that is a reference to never mind, I don't like being gross. But that aside, I think it's been a great season because it feels just so much less full. And we are really getting a chance to see dynamics that we haven't seen. Let's be honest. One of the best things to come out of this new thing is seeing that pairing of Heidi and Chloe together. I'm still thinking about that flat booty sketch and the two of them playing those Karens. I think it's more we're getting a chance to see other types of people. They can breathe a little bit. And also, this season, I think the reason is, I don't want to say it's stronger, but the reason it feels good is because it feels different. We have like all these newbies that honestly, probably in the amount of, Mike Murray would know, but in the amount of time that we've had this this new season, is just these 6 episodes, I feel like the 4 cast members have gotten more screen time or due than like Aristotle even did, if like in his whole season. And it's not that's not a crack against Aristotle. People know that I love him, but like this feels like more of an ensemble season. Now, granted, I am speaking sort of pre-Cecily a little bit. That has changed the mix a teeny bit, but there is something very fresh and about this season that like somebody like Andrew, at least I think the small point you could agree on is that like we wanted to see something new, and we are getting that. As to whether people like it or not, who cares? But you know what? People feel, it seems like the show is reinvigorated. It seems like there's new energy. Like they're trying different things, and you know what? I'm laughing a bunch. So I think it's a fantastic season. And yes, I did make an analogy to
yeah,
toilets.
Well, we know.
Yeah, we were all there. You talked about.
I'm never listening
like
to this.
3
I'm never
straight
listening
minutes.
to this one. Sometimes I can listen, but I'm
this
never
is
doing
your
it.
podcasting gold that you've given us today. Let's go to the counterpoint from Andrew. Has season 48 been a good season, Andrew?
What was it? The Jets pregame, tailgating sketch was just, full-throated nastiness, and it is,
bro.
What?
I'm sorry.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, you can go for it. When
What's
you
happening?
said full-throated, why you guys say it like that?
TJ, all right, like continue, please.
TJ, you just talked about shit for 3 minutes straight, and then I said,
But I never said the
full-throated?
word shit because I have class. Why would you say full throat?
Okay, we're on the air, people.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You're gonna have to edit this one, John. I'm sorry.
Oh, you really? All right. Well, that was that. And thanks, TJ, for that, and Andrew. We did have a very fun show with those guys. Everybody seems to love those shows, so we're definitely going to do some more point counterpoint in 2023. We may even get some new opponents for either TJ or Andrew on the show. So I love the format, and hopefully we'll get to continue that when we get an opportunity. But yeah, November in SNL was fun. Obviously, we spoke about the Jack Harlow episode. Amy Schumer comes back to host SNL. That was an interesting week where she was in and out of the building, and just it was like a lot of interesting storylines. And we had that roundtable in particular, the Schumer roundtable, I got some great feedback on, so appreciate everybody who sent that in. And then the Dave Chappelle episode, yeah, that was a big one. I mean, a lot of controversy having Chappelle host the show. We're having fun here. I'm not going to go back and rehash all of that, but what I would say is that on November 14th, 2022, we did have the Dave Chappelle and Black Star Roundtable with Haskell and TJ and Kirsten Turnbull, who's been a great new addition to the podcast this season. And we broke down everything from the controversy to Chappelle's monologue and talked about what that meant for having him host for the 3rd time and at this climate and everything like that, and all of the things that are happening with Kanye and Kyrie. Like, we really got deep and emotional with all of that. It's about a 45-minute discussion before we really get into the sketches. If you're interested in that and you missed it, I encourage you today to please definitely go check that out from November 14th. But then it was December, and it was a December to remember, as we had Keke Palmer first come in and host the show in December, and she was amazing. Like, let's just be real, Kenan and Kelly, so sick. Like, just so many fun things that particular week, and a great week of shows. Steve Martin Short, the legends finally coming in to host together. So much hype around that particular episode. I do want to take you in our next clip over to December 10th, 2022, where we talked about the Christmas Carol pre-tape, which to me, I think was my favorite pre-tape so far of the season. The one the week after was really good with Austin Butler, but that to me was probably my favorite moment of season 48 thus far. And just such a fun episode to talk about with Andrew Dick and Kaylee Morrison on the podcast together. And here is our thoughts on that amazing pre-tape with Martin Short as Scrooge and just the chaos that ensues when he throws money out the window. Let's move on to this pre-tape that I'll say this was my favorite part of the night. I absolutely love this pre-tape, A Christmas Carol, where Ebenezer Scrooge, Marty Short, wakes up from his dreams yelling and just so happy to be alive, and then goes to the window to Sarah Sherman and says, "Hey, little kid, go ahead and buy a goose," and just flicks the coin out the window, and it just goes and goes right into the boy's, I guess Sarah's playing boy in the sketch, boy's eye, or is it boy or girl, and it just goes right into the kid's eye, and then just keeps happening, and just everybody, it's just a lot of pain because coins keep flying everywhere, ice picks. Steve Martin comes in as the ghost of Christmas past, but nobody can see Steve, so everybody's only blaming Marty for this, which to me was like the funniest throwaway line. I'm in love with this pre-tape. I can't wait to go watch it. This to me was like the type of thing that I was looking for from the show tonight. Andrew, how do you feel about it?
Oh my God, it was a masterpiece. I loved this. I mean, speaking of escalations, this one earns it so hard. And, you know, I guess you got to be into the Sarah square. I assume Sarah had a heavy hand in this, and probably, you know, Please Don't Destroy. If we're going to, you know, it's like a healthy, gory, violent escalation to this all. And I mean, I gotta go revisit it too, because like there was a thing with Molly that was funny. Like Mikey getting his head kicked off. Like
I forgot about Tiny
like
Tim falling down the sewer. I'm sorry. It just like that was so funny.
That too. It felt like the Goodbye, Mr. Bunting, or Farewell, Mr. Bunting sketch.
Exactly. Yeah.
Escalated like 3 times. I loved it. Just cackling the entire time. By far and away the highlight of the episode. Loved it. Absolutely adored it.
Yeah. Unexpected gore works for me. And Farewell, Mr. Bunting to me is a top 5 Saturday Night Live sketch of all time. And I think that this was so
But
good.
I just love this one establishes the gore and then continues on. Like Mr. Bunting, like, you know, that was the gag. And then it just like very quickly chaos after that and it ends. But this starts with the gore and then continues on for like 3 more minutes.
Yeah, and also there's that like to culminate on everything. They like Marty like closes the windows at some point. You see all the glass shatter, and there's like blood is like flying up from beyond the window. This is amazing. Kaylee, how did you like this?
Oh, I feel like such a.
Bring it on.
I know the gore is not my cup of tea, like ever, and I want to like it because like other people like it so much, and I'm like, oh, they love this so much. But like the Goodbye or Farewell, Mr. Bunting, like also I'm like, oh my God, I just can't do the gore. I can't.
But this is okay because you're speaking to an audience that like there are many people out there, many of our listeners who might feel the same way as you. So I'd rather you just tell us how you really feel about it.
No, same with scary movies. Like I want to like them. Like there seems to be something in there that's enjoyable, but just I can't do it. It scares me. It really like it scares me. But the production value of this was amazing. Like I thought it was like stunning to look at. I thought Martin Short as Scrooge was hilarious, and Steve had some great moments as Christmas present as well. And Molly was another one. Just their voice, I think, lent itself to this time period very well. But yeah, like the chopping off of heads and the blood and the can't do it.
I'm so there for it. Yes. Merry Christmas.
It's scared. I'm gonna have a bad dream tonight.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not real. So, like, you know, when you're watching this, I know
you don't
like,
say.
Like, Tiny Tim didn't really go down the sewer, but yeah, I cannot wait to rewatch this one. And to me, this is definitely, you know, going into one of the best sketches of the season, if not the best for me.
And this was the one sketch where we did kind of get to see, like, I don't think we saw Longfellow at all.
Not at all tonight. First time we've had a shout out the entire season.
But yeah, we did see Molly and we did see Marcello, yes. Yes, him eating it as well. Got a good chuckle for me as well. So it was nice to see them within the mix of what I thought was like, yeah, this is going to be reran in the Christmas specials. Possibly. I don't know. It may be too violent.
I don't know if it's primetime material.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. But
yeah, I hope so.
It's a classic in my heart.
I would agree. That was a really fun hot take show. So thanks for Andrew and Kaylee for all the contributions to that. And we had some fun moments where Kaylee doesn't listen to music anymore since Prince died. I mean, just like some fun bits on that particular hot take show. And then finally, we get to our last episode of the year. Austin Butler with, musical guest Lizzo coming in, I guess replacing Yes. Lizzo comes in with Austin Butler, but obviously Elvis in the building. And what a memorable Christmas episode this was. Jewish Elvis, obviously, like I had a lot of fun with that. Marzipan was really fun too. A lot of the talk was mostly about Cecily Strong leaving Saturday Night Live. We found out that night that she was leaving the show. This was going to be her last episode. People were stunned. And we got to see her in the cold open. We got to see Kathy Ann's, on Weekend Update. And then, of course, Blue Christmas, which was the final goodbye to Cecily Strong. Really cool debate about that on the Hot Take Show, if that was, the best goodbye that we could have for her, what was right, what was wrong. I mean, was that, maybe it was just the way Cecily wanted, but we've seen so many goodbyes in 2022. It was interesting to evaluate her coming back for just a few episodes this fall. And on the roundtable that particular week, just a really emotional conversation that we did have about Cecily Strong, who means a lot to a lot of people. That was with Bill Kenny, Amanda Mitchell, and Sean Grant. In particular, Amanda's thoughts on, why Cecily Strong means so much to women who love watching her. Really poignant and just a really fascinating conversation. So definitely check that out if you get an opportunity. But I do want to take you back to a moment in this roundtable, because this is our last show of the year. And at the end of the day, SNL is fun. We've seen throughout the year, there are so many moments. There were some emotional discussions on the show. There were some really crazy moments. But at the end of the day, SNL is supposed to be fun. And that's why I do the podcast with all of my friends, all of you guys, all of the listeners, is just to have fun and talk about our favorite show. So I figured, why don't I leave you with this final clip from the year, from our December 17th, 2022 roundtable, which was, like I said, there was a sketch, Marzipan. And I figured, I've never had it before. My sister told me she loves it. So I was like, I'll try it. Why not? Here is me trying Marzipan in our final roundtable of 2022. Enjoy. Bill, do you like Marzipan?
Well, I am not a candy eater. I don't like most candies. But as a kid, if it was given to me, as a poor kid, I ate it because it was there, and I was a kid and I needed the sugar. You couldn't pay me enough to put that in my mouth today. Not a chance in hell. So, no, it's the candy corn of Christmas. No, get this shit out of here.
All right. Well, I am going to do it for free because I have Marzipan with me tonight.
I'm shaking!
So, Miss SNL Network, Allie, my girlfriend, prepared a Marzipan bear. Okay, I've never eaten Marzipan before, so
okay, it is really cute though. Tell Allie it's really, really cute, and I bet she did a really good job, even though Marzipan is horrible.
So yeah, I went to the grocery store today. I've never eaten Marzipan before, so
you're going viral, baby. You about to choke.
Yeah.
Do you have water?
I have water. I have a trusty Cubs cup here, so I don't want to leave any dead air. I don't know what the etiquette is.
Do it.
Can you guys kill?
I would mute yourself so you can't hear you chewing.
I'm gonna mute myself, but can somebody else? So the audio listeners, can somebody else narrate what's happening, or at least have a conversation while they'll be you guys will be responsible for the podcast while I'm eating.
I'm watching.
Okay.
I'm consuming media. Okay, listeners, Jon is on mute. Do
I eat an arm or a leg? Like, is there a specific part? I can't put this whole thing in my mouth.
Choke it down. Choke the whole thing down, man.
Head
we
first.
want views. We want views.
Like cats don't dance. Head first. A movie my mom hated so much she told me it didn't exist. She gaslit me about.
Oh, look at the look on Jon's face.
His face is very curious. At first it was a look of disturbed disgust, and now it's curious. He's trying to process what he's just done to himself. He's wondering all of his life's choices. He's reconsidering this decision. He's
yuck! It's perfect. Wow.
Honestly,
he took a small bite. He took a very worst cooks in
honestly
America bite.
Wasn't that bad.
Oh,
and listeners, he ate the whole thing. He ate the rest of it.
Oh, he's realizing his mistake now.
Yeah, he's realizing he's eating sandy paste.
Do we have a backup
He was
post in case
showing
John
off.
keels over?
He really said it was showing off. He thought he had defeated the marzipan. The marzipan said, "Nah, this isn't a game, bro." Like, he
Somebody get
regrets.
Sammy K on the line. We
The
need
look
a,
on
we
his
need a
face,
backup
listeners,
post.
is the look of pure regret. He is, wow.
Ooh.
He wants to sue all of us. Like, he wants to call the principal. He's so upset.
Oh my God, Johnny Knoxville in the
We
house.
have detention, all of us.
Honestly, it really wasn't that bad. I don't know what everybody's freaking out about. Like,
Dang.
would I eat that by choice? I mean, I guess I had a choice tonight. No one was forcing me to eat this, but I honestly think, and I'm a picky eater. Like, if anybody knows me, I'm a picky eater. I, like Bill, don't eat much candy. Really wasn't that bad. The texture is worse than the taste, in my opinion. So,
But I'm like a texture.
Was it like a baby's
eater.
ass?
Like,
John?
I eat for texture, so I think that's like a thing.
Yeah. I've never eaten a baby's ass, so I wouldn't know. But I think this is this was.
Whoa! You talking about an orgasm? You just said what? Eating babies' asses.
All right, let's.
Yeah, we're gonna get kicked off YouTube. We're gonna get kicked off YouTube.
John said,
y'all.
This is the problem. This is the problem when
watching.
This is the problem when the godfather of SNL podcasting, Rich Tackenberg, misses the show tonight. Just everything everything goes to shit.
The later it gets, the more chaotic.
All right. While I try and get rid of this marzipan taste, Amanda, can you guide us into our discussion of Cecily Strong?
Yeah, I'm happily now that I've been traumatized having to witness that.
And that does it. Those were the best and most fascinating moments of the podcast in 2022. Of course, I'm sure there was plenty of others we didn't get a chance to get to. We have so many amazing contributors to the show. So if you think there was a moment that we left out, definitely let us know. We obviously want to hear that. But of course, if you made it to the end of this podcast, please let me know as well. Would love to get your thoughts on if you enjoyed this best of clip show and if it's something we should continue to do every single year. Always appreciate that type of feedback. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I cannot thank our listeners enough for just keeping us going throughout the last 2.5 years. It's just been such a pleasure getting to know and meet all of you from all around the world coming to listen and talk about Saturday Night Live. In particular, must thank our podcasters and internal team for everything that they do to contribute to the show. And I also really genuinely want to thank our friends at NBC, many of whom listen to this show and have encouraged us to keep going and building the community about the show that they create. So if you are a fan of the show and you're also working at the show, I really appreciate you as well. But, mostly just want to thank all of our listeners in 2022 and encourage you to come back for 2023 because we have so many fun things planned for the podcast. Can't wait to share them all with you. So if you would like to find us on social media, at the SNL Network, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. I mean, tonight was a show all about the podcast, but there's so much more to what we do over here where our social media team, our marketing team puts together amazing statistics that go on every social platform that really break down the inner workings of Saturday Night Live and the history of the show. So also want to give a big shout out to that as well. You can find us on social media there. And if you are a regular listener and you're not subscribed to us anywhere, please consider subscribing to the show, or if you're a new listener as well, because those subscriptions really help people find our show. So you don't have to just subscribe on YouTube. You can also do it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Always appreciate that as it helps us really grow the show and bring in more people. So that would be amazing. And then, of course, if you ever wanted to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, those are just some easy ways to help us produce this content for all of you. And of course, liking our videos and things like that, commenting, every, piece of engagement, following us on socials, just appreciate everything you can do to help us continue to build this thing. So ultimately, I just want to say Happy New Year to everybody who is able to listen to us. I hope that 2023 is an amazing year for all of our listeners and for Saturday Night Live. I can't wait for this new era to continue to grow and build and what we're going to get for the future of the show. So there's been a lot of growth, a lot of changes over the years, but I'm so proud of where we have come and proud to be now the Saturday Night Network, the SNN, and I hope that you will continue to enjoy our coverage in 2023. So on behalf of myself, Jon Schneider, and every other contributor to the SNN, I just want to thank all of our listeners for joining us today on our Best of 2022 special. We will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.